Chapter 49. Preparing to build a house. It's about building the house, Yundong said. I've just arrived, so I don't know who's familiar with this place. So I want to trouble the village chief to help me find a reliable person. The salary is 40 copper coins a day. I want provide food for them. She had asked around. Usually, the construction of houses here cost 30 copper coins a day, but they had to pay for the lunch. She was living in a widow's house now, so it was not convenient. It's not a problem for me to help you find constructors. Chen Liang frowned slightly. I'm just afraid that you won't be satisfied. What are you talking about? The village chief will definitely find the most suitable people. If I were to do it myself, one would really be clueless and wouldn't even know that one had been scammed. However, one might have more requests. Please help me communicate with them to avoid any unhappiness. This is 2 taels of silver. It's the fee for your help. Yundong took out a piece of silver and handed it over. Chen Liang immediately declined her. What are you doing? I'm the village chief of Yongfu village. I'll help you find a few people. How can I accept your silver? You can't say that. Although you're the village chief, one can't push everything onto you and ask you to help, right? You know that my father isn't around. It's not convenient for a young lady like me to do many things, and they might not listen to me. If you help me find someone, you have to communicate with them, and you have to help me supervise them in the future. This isn't within the responsibility of the village chief. I can't let you help me do so many things, right? Then what kind of person am I? If you don't accept this fee, then I can forget about building my house. Hey, you little girl, Chen Liang didn't even know that this young lady was so good at doing things. There was no one else in the central room. Other than him, there was only his wife, Madame Zhou. After hesitating for a moment, he still accepted the silver. All right, don't worry and leave this to me. Take this silver as your payment for my service. Thank you, Uncle Chen. Yundong changed his words and smiled. One have to go back and think about how the house should look like. Can I give you the blueprint tomorrow? All right, I'll look for someone in the afternoon. Come and meet me tomorrow morning and we can start work. Yundong said a few more words to Chen Liang. Seeing that it was getting late, she left a bag of pastries that she had bought from the county this morning and brought the 3 of them out. The carriage followed behind them and pulled the things to the rented place. As soon as they left, Madame Zhou opened the bag on the table. When she saw that it was the famous date cake in the county, she was even more satisfied. This young lady is much more sensible than the previous 2 families. The Wang family and the He family talked nicely, saying that the village chief had the ability to help. In the end, you found someone for them, but they're still unsatisfied. It's as if you've gained something from it. They say that it's not easy for them to come all the way here because they're poor. They keep pressing down on your salary. 20 copper coins a day is too much. Now, people are not willing to help them build it. They've been here for 5 to 6 days, but they haven't found anyone. I reckon that by the time the Gu family's house is built, their houses haven't even appeared. Chen Liang actually liked the Gu family more. Even without 2 taels of silver, he felt that this young lady's words were better. He was willing to help her. However, he still scolded Madame Zhou. She won't see the workers until tomorrow. The Gu family might not be satisfied with the people one find. Don't talk nonsense. Regardless of whether she's satisfied or not, she has given us pastries and silver in advance. As for the other 2 families, they didn't even thank us. With this comparison, Chen Liang really had nothing to say. Moreover, the Gu family had given him money without even seeing the workers. This meant that they trusted him. Chen Liang felt quite happy. Chapter 50, House Model and Yet. Yundong did not trust him. She trusted Kong. Back then, her main requirement was that the village chief's character was passable. Although Chen Liang had his own thoughts, he was very reliable about big matters. He would definitely not cheat her when it came to building a house. It was normal for humans to have little thoughts. Now, as long as she planned the structure of the house as soon as possible, those people could start to work as soon as possible and move in. When they arrived at the Qin family's second branch, Yundong took down all the things in the carriage. Qingyuan enthusiastically helped her move them. There were not many things. There were only 2 baskets. She did not need Qingyuan's help at all. Yundong and Madame Yang each took one. Then, she paid the coachman and let him leave. The Qin family's second branch was not far from the village chief's house. There was a small courtyard. There were only the mother and daughter at home, but it was quite clean. Madame Fong looked like a very weak woman with a faint smile. As soon as she saw them enter, she pulled Madame Yang to talk. Madame Yang did not know her and was shocked. She immediately hid behind Yundong. Yundong smiled at Madame Fong. My mother is timid and not used to interacting with strangers. Aunt Fong, you can tell me anything. Madame Fong could also tell that something was wrong with Madame Yang. She smiled and nodded. Yundong took everything to her room and also brought a small bag of date cakes to Qingyuan to thank her for her help today. She then said that she was a little tired and wanted to go back to her room to rest. Qingyuan took the date cake and went to Madame Fang's house. As soon as she entered, her smile disappeared and her face darkened. To think that one was so busy. She didn't give us as much date cake as she gave Uncle and the others. Who is she looking down on? Isn't she bullying us orphans and widows? Madame Fong opened the date cake and ate it. All right, they still have to live with us for a long time in the future. There will always be benefits for us. Didn't you see that mother of hers? She's a fool. She even said that she's timid. Later, we'll coax that Madame Yang to find some food or other good things for us. I think they must have some family background. By the way, let's not cook tonight. When they cook, we'll say a few good words. She'll be too embarrassed not to invite us to eat. Will she? Why not? They're new here and don't even have any relatives or friends. They don't have any adult men at home either. Wouldn't they have to build a good relationship with our villagers? Besides, your uncle is the village chief. She has to please us. Qingyuan nodded. Would Yundong know that although she was just giving them some date cakes as a normal favor, those people were not satisfied at all and wanted more? They even planned to take her dinner. They didn't cook lunch. When they came from the county city in the morning, they bought a lot of buns and finished them at noon. Madame Yang and the 2 little ones made the bed and went to take an afternoon nap. Yundong sat at the table, holding a charcoal pencil and paper, and began to draw the layout of the house. She had pictured modern houses in her mind, but here, many aspects were not easy to implement. She could only try to build them as comfortably and conveniently as possible. 1 room for each person, 2 guest rooms, and 2 study rooms. When the house was built and stabilized, she would definitely earn money and send Gu Yunshu to study. Gu Yunshu had learned some words from Gu Dajiang when he was at home. This child had inherited Gu Dajiang's talent. If he studied hard, he would definitely not be bad in the future. Chapter 51, Warmth. Gu Yundong wrote and drew on a piece of paper. According to her preliminary estimation, there would be 7 or 8 rooms. There was also a central room, kitchen, dining room, clean house, and warehouse. Oh right, there was also a cowshed. That was equivalent to a garage. Even if she could not afford a car now, she would have to need it in the future. The front door led to the courtyard. When the time came, they could plant grapes and dates in the courtyard, build a swing rack, and make a stone table and bench. In the summer, they could eat fruits at night, and in the winter, they could also bask in the sun. There was a row of central rooms opposite the courtyard. There was a bedroom and a study room on the left, and a dining room and a kitchen on the right. There were 2 rooms on both sides of the courtyard, which could be divided into 2 or 3 rooms. She planned to set a small cubicle in each room as a bathroom. It would be convenient to take a shower. Box novel. Kame warehouse could be built at the entrance. Agricultural tools were indispensable in the countryside. Those hoes and baskets could be placed there to build a public cleaning place. After painting and drawing, it actually covered about a mu of land. Indeed, it was necessary to buy another mu of land. The backyard had to be surrounded too. When the time came, they would cultivate all kinds of vegetables and have a place to raise pigs and chickens. The cow shed was also in the backyard. When the time came, they would open the door there. When there was an ox carriage, the ox carriage could be pulled out directly. After Yundong drew the structure, she began to count the measurements. Madame Yang and the other two woke up on the bed. Yunshu got up and washed his face. He walked to the table and picked up the draft paper. He tilted his head and looked around. Big sister, is this our home? Can you understand it? Yundong looked up and asked him with a smile. The little thing's head was finally not disproportionately big. Now, even if he tilted his head, he did not have to worry about falling. She looked indescribably cute. After all, he was just a 5-year-old child. He looked good no matter how one looked at him. Yunshu did not fully understand. He simply sat on the chair and studied the blueprint carefully. Yunka saw it and ran over. The stool was a little high, so she could only climb her pants. I want to see it too. Little sister, be gentler. You're going to take off my pants. I'm so light. If you don't believe me, look. I'm so thin. I didn't eat much. Yunka was dissatisfied. Her brother had been saying that she ate too much recently and that she would be a fat girl in the future. She didn't even want to like him anymore. Yundong could not help but laugh. He carried Yunka and sat beside Yunshu. The little girl immediately turned her head and said to her, Big sister, I'm light, right? You can even carry me. Yes, yes, yes. You're the lightest among us. Yunshu snorted. Of course, she was the lightest. How heavy could a 3-year-old be? Yunk's little head had already leaned over. She could not understand it. She only saw square black lines and frames. She could not read, and she knew nothing about what was written on it. She raised her confused face and looked at Yunshu. Yunshu simply pondered as she explained to her. Seeing that he was right, Yundong did not say anything and simply lowered his head to continue drawing. In addition to drawing the basic house pattern, there were also some details that had to be drawn clearly, lest it was unclear when the time came. Madame Yang was tidying up at the side. The atmosphere in the room was warm and calm. However, this warmth was broken after 2 hours. Just as Yundong was engrossed in painting, Qingyuan came to knock on the door. Chapter 52, Who Takes Advantage of Whom, Sister Yundong. Her voice was still a little loud. Yundong could not help but frown. He put down his pen in frustration and asked loudly, What's the matter? It's getting late. My mother said that if you want to cook dinner, one should help you. Yes, help her by telling her where to fetch the firewood and water. Yundong looked at the sky. It was already 4 p.m. It was still too early for her. In addition, she had yet to finish painting. If it was any later, the sky would turn dark. Now that there were no electric lights, the oil lamp was too dark, so she had to finish it while the sky was still bright. Box novel. Come hence, she said to Qingyuan, who was at the door, we ate late at noon. We're not hungry yet. You guys can cook first. Well, eat later. One still have something to do first. As she spoke, she looked at Yunshu and the other woman. The 2 children patted their stomachs. I'm still full. When Qingyuan heard this, she pursed her lips and left. Madame Fong was watering the vegetables in the courtyard. Seeing her come out angrily, she could not help but ask, what happened? She said she's not hungry yet. Qingyuan snorted. They must have eaten buns at noon. I smelled it when I walked past their window. They must have eaten a lot of buns since they were so full. They don't even know how to share the buns with the two of us. They really don't know how to be human. As she spoke, she raised her head and asked Madame Fong, do you think she's thinking of taking advantage of us, so she won't cook? Shall let the two children come over to beg when we eat? Madame Fang's eyes flashed. Now that you mention it, it makes sense. They fled here. One heard that those refugees have nothing to eat on the way. Even if they have money, they have nowhere to use it. They only ask others for food. Perhaps they all have the habit of using two children to take advantage. So what do? Let's wait. I want to see Whole starve first. They have children. Yes, if they ask us for a few dishes, well, let them pay. The price will be high. They have money. Yundong did not know that although she was just a little late for dinner, the mother and daughter could come up with a scheme. She was already at the finishing stage and drew for another hour. When the sky darkened and Madame Yang lit an oil lamp, she stopped. She exhaled and rubbed her shoulders. She packed up the sketches and put them away before saying to them, it's getting late. We didn't bring much food. There are still dumplings that we made at Auntie K's house yesterday morning. How about we eat dumplings tonight? The dumplings had already been steamed, and the weather was relatively cool now. They would not turn bad even if they were kept for 2 days. Moreover, she had been hiding the dumplings in her space to preserve the freshness. Actually, Madame Yang could cook. It was just that they had just arrived in an unfamiliar place. The mother and daughter were not as straightforward as Aunt Ku. Madame Yang would panic, so Yundong did not let her out for the time being. When they heard that they were going to eat dumplings, the three of them could not help but swallow their saliva. Although they had already eaten dumplings twice at Aunt K's house, they still wanted to eat them. I want to eat 2 bowls. Yunke said. Yundong took the dumplings and went out. Madame Yang helped her start the fire. When they entered the kitchen, Yundong looked at the cold environment and could not help but raise her eyebrows. Madame Fong and the rest had not cooked dinner. At this moment, Qingyuan had already run into Madame Fang's house. She said excitedly to her mother, who was filling her stomach with date cake, they finally can't take it anymore, and started to cook dinner. Chapter 53, Who's tolerating your bad habit? Excitement flashed across Madame Fang's face. She pushed Qingyuan. Go and help. At that time, the Gu family would be embarrassed, right? Wouldn't they have to let the mother and daughter eat together? Qingyuan turned around and ran to the kitchen. She wanted to tell the Gu family where the water was, but she didn't expect them to have already boiled it. Looking at the dumplings on the side, Qingyuan's face turned red. Dumplings, white flour dumplings. They were fair and plump and full of fillings. Just looking at them made one drool. Box novel. Calm, she forcefully retracted her gaze and said enthusiastically, Sister Yundong, are you making dinner? Let me help you start the fire. There's no need. My mother is here. It'll be fine in a while. Go do what you have to do. Seeing that the water was boiling, Yundong added oil, salt, and scallions to the big ceramic bowl to adjust the taste. Then, she poured boiling water on it. The bowl instantly became oily. Qingyuan's hands were clenched tightly. Instead of leaving, she took a few steps forward and said with a smile, Are you eating dumplings? Why didn't I see when you guys made dumplings? They smell so good. Mother and I had some porridge earlier. Now, we're hungry after smelling your dumplings. Had some porridge earlier? Then why was the pot and stove cold when she came in? It didn't look like they had just eaten at all. Yundong was not a fool that could not even tell what she was saying. In addition, her eyeballs were about to fall into the dumpling pot, and she had come to help at the right time. She wanted to eat their dumplings. If you want to eat, just eat. You even spoke indirectly. She was not an unreasonable person, but at the very least, this woman had to tell the truth. She said that she was hungry after eating porridge earlier. Could it be that she had been waiting for them to cook until she came to eat? Who would tolerate your bad habit? I don't expect you to be like Auntie Ku, but at least let's get along like a normal landlord and tenant. I've paid the room fee and doesn't owe you anything. Gu Yundong smiled as she watched the fat dumplings in the pot float up one by one. She immediately became even happier. Yes, we're going to eat dumplings. It's already so late. I thought it would be troublesome to cook, right? As she spoke, she scooped all the dumplings into a large bowl that had been mixed with ingredients. She had bought this bowl in the prefectural city. It was very big, just like the bowl of fish with pickled vegetables in the restaurant in her previous life. Now that the dumplings were all scooped up, Gu Yundong said to Qingyuan, "I'm done. The kitchen is yours. Well, go back to our room to eat so as not to disturb you. It's still early. If you're hungry, you can cook some noodles. It'll be convenient and not waste time." She placed a piece of cloth on the edge of the bowl and carried it away. From afar, she said, "Mother, put out the fire and clean the pot. Hurry back to your room to eat dumplings. There aren't many dumplings. My brother and sister might finish them later. It'll be done soon." Madame Yang was very fast. After washing the pot, she followed her into the room. The smell of dumplings still lingered in the kitchen, but Qingyuan stood in front of the dark stove with a livid expression. When Madame Fong came in, she happened to hear her kick the foot of the table hard. It was so painful that she cried out. "What are you doing? What's going on?" Qingyuan felt extremely aggrieved. To think that she had helped this woman run around the homestead and treated her so well. She had even kindly told her to stay away from Shao Qingyuan and not to offend anyone in the village who was a chatterbox. In the end, this Gu Yundong was an ingrate with no conscience. Chapter 54, Feng Danning, "Mother, let them leave tomorrow. We won't let them stay in our house anymore." Madame Fong patted her. "What nonsense are you talking about? We've already accepted the money. How can you not let him stay? If you really chase him away, it'll be difficult to explain to your uncle. But she doesn't know what's good for her." Qingyuan recounted what had happened just now. She was very irritable, especially when she felt the smell of dumplings floating in her nose. She couldn't help but take a deep breath. Madame Fong frowned. Forget it. She doesn't know what's good for her. Isn't there still that pair of young siblings and that fool mother? Those three don't know anything. They'll definitely be easy to fool. Another day, when that girl isn't around, say a few good words. Are you afraid that they won't give us anything good? All right, let's cook first. We'll find an opportunity tomorrow. I'm starving. Mother, didn't you just eat date cake? Box novel. Calm Qingyuan muttered twice, but she still got to work. Gu Yundong happily distributed the dumplings and said in a low voice, that mother and daughter are not easy to get along with. Stay away from them in the future, understand? I know. Gu Yunshu nodded repeatedly as he ate. I'm a man. It's not good for me to be too close to them. Gu Yunka saw that his brother had already eaten a few and was instantly extremely anxious. However, he remembered to answer his eldest sister's question and hurriedly nodded. I'll be obedient and stay away. Older brother, eat slowly. Help me blow on it first. Madame Yang nodded. In the future, when I see them, I'll run. I'll run immediately. Dong dong, you don't have to worry. After saying that, she immediately lowered her head and the three of them began to eat assiduously. The dumplings that big sister made were the best. They tasted delicious. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Take your time. There's enough. The family of four did not treat Madame Fong and her daughter the same as Aunt Ku. After eating, they boiled water, washed up, and went to bed. The next morning, Gu Yundong took the blueprint and brought Madame Yang and the other two to the village chief's house. Before he left, he locked the door. Chen Liang was already waiting for her. Beside him stood a tall and burly middle-aged man. As soon as Gu Yundong entered, he introduced, Yundong, you're here. Come, let me introduce you. This is Feng Danning from our village. Your Uncle Feng. Hello, Uncle Feng. Feng Danning nodded and looked at this family of 4. He understood why the village chief said that he would be in charge of this matter. It was indeed inconvenient without an adult man in this family. The house they built would not be very big. However, each person would earn 40 copper coins a day. Could they afford it? Shen Liang patted Feng Danning's arm and said, Your Uncle Feng is an expert in building houses in our area. As long as he's not busy with farming, he will work near us to help people build houses. When he was young, he even stayed in the prefectural city for 2 years. His skills are unparalleled. Uncle Chen's help is naturally the best. I'm not worried. Ha ha ha. Chen Liang liked Gu Yundong's words. She was nice. She was not like the girls and women in the village. Not only were they loud, but they also made people's ears hurt. Alright, didn't you say yesterday that you would go back and think about how to build a house? Think about it. Then tell your Uncle Feng about it. I've already drawn the blueprint. Uncle Feng, take a look. Gu Yundong unfolded the blueprint in her hand. Feng Danning and Shen Liang were a little surprised and came over to take a look. Chapter 55, Seeing a Ghost. The next moment, both of them widened their eyes in surprise. This was a blueprint? It was as if a house was clearly displayed in front of them. It was obvious at a glance. Madame Zhou also took a closer look. Even a layman like her felt that this house was really beautiful. Gu Yundong took out 2 more blueprints. The first one was a diagram of the entire house, just like the modern house from a high perspective. The second one was an internal structural diagram with various sizes and the location of the room. The third one was the details of the interior of the room. After looking at the 3 blueprints, both Feng Danning and Shen Liang could not help but swallow hard. Box novel. Yundong, this was drawn by you? Chen Liang found it unbelievable. You've studied? You know how to write? There were many words written on it. Gu Yundong nodded. My father can read and write. He taught me. In fact, these 3 drawings were very crude. The main reason was that her time was limited. What exquisite thing could she hand over in just one afternoon? But this was enough. What she wanted to build was not a pavilion or a palace temple. It was just a brick house of a farmer. But even so, Feng Danning couldn't help but look at it again and again. He had been building houses for so many years and had always been dictated or explained to by the hirer. How could there be such a detailed blueprint that gave such a clear and intuitive image? When he was in the prefectural city, he had seen a large stack of drawings when a rich family was building a house. However, he felt that it was different from what he was seeing now. In short, Feng Danning felt that after reading Gu Yundong's blueprint, his mind would immediately picture the appearance of the house. It was too convenient. Uncle Feng, this blueprint only has a rough structure. There are many details that one need Uncle Feng to tell me. If there's anything one need, I'll add it. Alright, come, let's talk about it in detail. Hey, how did you draw this? This door is really beautiful, and the windows are also beautiful. It's quite interesting to have flowers on both sides of the door. The flowers are also lifelike, and what does this semicircle mean? Gu Yundong was speechless. Just as she was holding her forehead, she saw a 6 or 7-year-old child walk in and quietly approach Gu Yunshu. All Shu, 111 bring you out to play. This was the village chief's grandson, Niu Dan. His real name was Qingyuan. He had already met Gu Yunshu yesterday. When Gu Yundong went to visit the homestead, the 2 children were chatting quite happily. Gu Yundong thought that she would be very busy from now on. The 2 children would also be very bored by her side, so she nodded and let Gu Yunshu go. She only reminded him to take good care of Gu Yunka. Unexpectedly, the little girl shook her head firmly with her arms crossed. I want talk to older brother today. Who asked older brother to call her fat girl this morning? Yundong could not help but laugh. Dan dragged Yunshu away. As soon as he went out, Yunshu asked Dan to bring him to the homestead at the foot of the mountain to take a look. He did not have time to look at it yesterday. Dan familiarly led him to the place. In the future, if your family is here, it will be easy to go up the mountain. Let me tell you, there are rabbits and pheasants on our mountain. Last time, my brother caught 2 pheasants and roasted them. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch them. My sister is very powerful. She will definitely be able to catch them. Then the next time your eldest sister catches them, they'll go to your house to eat. Okay. Hey, isn't this the young master from yesterday? Just as the two of them were fantasizing about the future, they heard a discordant voice behind them. They turned around and saw 4 or 5 children in their teens standing behind them. One of them pointed at Yunshu and said, "Hey, you have candy on you, right? Take it out for us to eat. Hurry up." Was this person a bandit? Big Sister had said that one had to be as cold and heartless as the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves when dealing with bandits. Yunshu pulled a long face, but before he could be heartless, the 4 or 5 children suddenly stared behind him with expressions as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 56. Never thought of helping you. Yunshu turned around in confusion and saw a young man standing behind them with a gloomy expression. His eyes were cold, as if they had disturbed his rest. However, this person seemed to have been seen somewhere before. He poked his head hard, but before he could figure it out, the children suddenly screamed, "Wolf cub, run!" As soon as he said this, everyone dispersed. Yunshu was still standing on the spot, not understanding what the wolf cub meant. Dan beside him was a little afraid, but Yunshu was brought out by him. He could not leave him alone, so he was very strong and did not move his legs. Box novel. Calm, however, he secretly tugged at his hand and whispered, "Let's leave quickly too." Why? Yunshu was puzzled. Isn't it good that they were scared away? Then they won't snatch my things. But I'm also scared. Dan quietly raised his head to look at Shao Qingyuan's face. When he met his eyes, his body could not help but tremble. Yunshu had already remembered who he was. He immediately walked quickly to Shao Qingyuan. "It's you. Why are you here? Are you also from this village? What a coincidence. I'll also be a villager in the future. This is the homestead we just confirmed. Eldest sister said that we can build a house soon. This will be my home in the future. Where is your home?" Was it too late for him to pretend not to know him and run with the children just now? Shao Qingyuan looked at the little kid in front of him. "What's your name?" Dan stood rooted to the ground and did not dare to move. However, he was shouting crazily in his heart, "Don't answer, don't answer. If you answer, it means that you're targeted by him. You're finished. I'm telling you that you're finished. And yet. My name is Yunshu," Yunshu said very seriously. "Thank you for helping us scare away those child bandits just now." Shao Qingyuan sneered. "One never thought of helping you. It was just a coincidence. Although you might not have thought about it, it was indeed because of you that they ran away and didn't find trouble with me. One was the one who benefited. My eldest sister said that this is considered, well, indirect help." Indirect help? Shao Qingyuan was deep in thought. Last time in the prefecture capital, the 2 constables had also seen the girl, so they did not cause trouble for him. It was especially similar to the current situation. Shao Qingyuan did not say anything else and turned to leave. Yunshu still wanted to follow him and chat with him. He had just taken a step when he was pulled back by Dan. He called out to him softly and firmly, "Come back." Yunshu was only a little slower, but Shao Qingyuan had already turned the intersection in large strides and disappeared. Yunshu was very regretful. "Why are you holding me back? I haven't finished speaking." "You know him?" Speaking of this, Gu Yunshu was a little excited. You don't know. Last time, I saw him kick out like this. He directly knocked over a constable. Hiss, Niu Dan sucked in a cold breath. He actually dared to hit the constable? As expected, a wolf cub is indeed a wolf cub. A wolf cub? Why do you all call him a wolf cub? And you all look very afraid of him. Isn't he quite handsome? Could it be that these people had a problem with their aesthetic taste, as eldest sister had said? Then what should he do? He thought that he was quite handsome. Would the people here think that he was ugly? Chapter 57, Shao Qingyuan teaches the brats a lesson. Gu Yunshu touched his little face. Niu Dan had already pulled him back. As he walked, he explained to him, in the beginning, the adults called him a wolf cub. I don't understand why. I asked my mother and grandmother, but they just told me not to ask. Speaking of this, he was a little dissatisfied. Everyone treated him as a brat. He was already 7 years old, okay? I'm afraid of him because, speaking of this, Niu Dan couldn't help but shiver. Once, I saw him with my own eyes. I saw him throw Go Dan into the water. All? Gu Yunshu was stunned. Who is Go Dan? Was that the main point? That was obviously not the case. Box novel. Niu Dan was a little resentful, but with his interruption, the fear in his heart decreased a lot. Go Dan is the son of the Gao family at the village entrance. He's the same age as me. Once, he scolded the wolf cub and asked the big dog at home to bite him. He said that he would let the wolf cub compete with the dog to see who was stronger. In the end, the big dog was injured by a kick and Go Dan was thrown into the river. When Go Dan couldn't breathe, this guy went down to save him. When Go Dan recovered, he threw him into the water and waited for Go Dan family to come. He had seen it with his own eyes. Go Dan went home later and fell seriously ill. From then on, he avoided Shao Qingyuan and did not dare to provoke him anymore. The news spread like wildfire. The Gao family refused to let Shao Qingyuan off just like that. They even came to his grandfather to seek justice for them and chase Shao Qingyuan out of Yongfu village. Later on, Shao Qingyuan said that if they dared to cause trouble for him again, he would set the Gao family on fire. Shao Qingyuan had always been a man of his word. The Gao family was also afraid that he would really do something. After all, he had nothing to worry about. There was no need for him to sacrifice the lives of his entire family. In short, this matter was left unsettled in the end. However, from then on, whenever children saw Shao Qingyuan, they would run as far as they could. Don't you think this person is scary? Niu Dan said to Gu Yunshu, in the future, you have to walk further away when you see him. He won't even let a child off. Gu Yunshu was conflicted. Wasn't it Go Dan who did bad things first? It's normal for him to be taught a lesson. My elder sister said that no matter if it's an old man or a child, if their hearts are bad, they're bad people. Why can't you hit them? What if that Go Dan lets the dog bite you? Niu Dan blinked. I must be very angry and want revenge. In that case, the wolf cubs were not wrong. Why did it feel strange? Before he could figure it out, the two of them had already walked to the door of the house. When they entered the central room, they could still hear Feng Daning's excited voice. They had yet to finish the discussion. Gu Yunshu walked to his sister's side and stood on his tiptoes to take a look. He realized that they were talking about the last picture. It seemed like it was about time. Feng Daning was full of praise for these blueprints. With this, I know what to do. You've also added what I just said that needed your attention just now. Don't worry, I've already taken a look. Tomorrow will be a good day. We'll be able to start work on the house soon. It'll be completed in a month. Ha, the people one called are all very efficient. Anyway, you live in the village now and can look at it at any time. If you have any questions, just tell me. Thank you, Uncle Feng. Feng Danning waved his hand. It's no trouble at all. Anyway, you're paying me. Besides, there's this blueprint. He suddenly paused and his expression became strange. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. What's wrong? Is there anything else? Chapter 58. Let me say the ugly things first. Feng Danning coughed lightly and looked a little embarrassed. He said in a low voice, I was too happy just now and didn't pay attention. I didn't consider your situation. Your house is good, but it will cost a lot of money to build. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment before he smiled. No. You can build it first. You don't have to worry about money. In the countryside, a family of 4 or 5 would usually only need more than 20 taels of silver to build a slightly better house. But Gu Yundong wanted a green brick tiled house, and there were many requirements. The renovation alone was different from the village chief's green brick tiled house. The labor fee was not low, and the area was quite large, so it could not be built without 70 to 80 taels. Gu Yundong's budget was 100 taels. Even if she did not have it now, it would take at least a month to build a house. During this period of time, she could always think of a way to earn some money. Box novel. If she really could not earn it, she could postpone buying the furniture inside and lay the bricks on the ground later. At the moment, she still had more than 60 taels of silver on hand, which was enough. Hearing her say this, Feng Danning was relieved. It seemed that the Gu family was indeed wealthy. Otherwise, her father would not have been able to read, right? Gu Yundong discussed the ingredients with Feng Danning again. Madame Zhou had already called them for lunch. Madame Zhou had brought Madame Yang along with her to cook. Yesterday, Gu Yundong had given Chen Liang silver so that Madame Zhou had a good impression of her. It did not cost much to have a meal. Besides, they had not finished talking. After eating, she gave Gu Yundong a big basket of vegetables to bring back. Poor Madame Feng and her daughter. They were still waiting for Gu Yundong to go home and buy the vegetables in their field. Gu Yundong looked at the basket that was enough for her family to eat for 2 days. He raised his eyebrows and smiled at Madame Zhou. Aunt, are you afraid that I won't have any vegetables to eat? Madame Zhou was stunned and immediately felt a little awkward. I was just afraid that you've just arrived and didn't prepare anything. You don't have a vegetable field. These were all planted by my family. There's a lot of them. It's not troublesome. Gu Yundong accepted the vegetables. Chen Liang and his wife were not bad. However, there were some things that had to be made clear. I know even if Auntie doesn't say it. You're afraid that Auntie Feng and I will have a problem, right? Madame Zhou was a little surprised. It had only been a night, but the Gu family already knew what kind of person Madame Feng was. Let me tell you the truth. It hasn't been easy for second brother's wife to raise their daughter alone all these years. They've suffered a lot, so it's inevitable that they're a little stubborn. It's not a big problem. After all, your Uncle Chen is a man. It's not easy for him to get too close to this sister-in-law, and he doesn't know what she's like now. Back then, when he arranged for your family to live there, it was because there was really no other suitable family. Secondly, he wanted to take care of the mother and daughter and let them earn a few copper coins. Gu Yundong nodded. No, but I'll make it clear to Auntie first. If others treat me well, I'll return the favor, but if they scheme against me, one won't be polite either. After saying that, she nodded at Madame Zhou and turned to leave with the basket. Madame Zhou sighed. She had thought that Gu Yundong was easy to talk to, but now it seemed that she was not someone who could be taken advantage of. Everything else was fine, but she was afraid that if the two of them really fought, it would be her man who would be in a difficult position. Madame Zhou shook her head and went back to tell Chen Liang this. It could be considered a warning in advance. On the other side, when Gu Yundong brought the 3 of them home, she was surprised to see a man standing in the courtyard. When the man saw them, he was only stunned for a moment before nodding in greeting. Chapter 59. source of income at this moment, Madame Fong walked out. Behind her was another woman. That woman looked a little similar to the man in front of her. Madame Fong was quite unhappy to see Gu Yundong, especially when she saw that she was carrying a basket of vegetables. She frowned. However, there was still a guest at home. She still had a smile on her face and introduced, "This is the Gu family that I told you about, who are staying at my house for the time being. They don't have any adult men, so it's convenient for them to stay at our house. Our Yulan doesn't have any siblings either. It's rare for her to have a few kids at home. She's so happy. She said that as an elder sister, she has to take good care of them." Gu Yundong sneered and did not say anything. Madame Fong then said to her, "This is Auntie Wu from town. That's Auntie Wu's youngest son. He just got engaged to our Yulan." When she mentioned town, Madame Fang's face was filled with a sense of superiority. Gu Yundong greeted Aunt Wu and returned to her room. Auntie Wu frowned. "Why is she so rude?" Sigh. Madame Fong sighed. "She fled here and met many bad people along the way. It's inevitable that she'll be wary of strangers. Let's not talk about her. Stay here for dinner. I'll get Yulan to cut a piece of meat." "That's good. I've never tasted Yulan's cooking before." Madame Fong called Chen Yulan out of the house. Gu Yundong could still hear their voices from afar. She frowned slightly. Indeed, it was very inconvenient to stay in someone else's house. She had to earn money quickly. After that, she would get Uncle Fong to hire more people and speed up. However, what should she do? The most basic thing in the countryside was still farming. When they came to Yongfu village, they could get 2 mues of wasteland, but they had to cultivate it themselves. Even if Gu Yundong was an expert in farming, it was impossible for her to earn money in a month. Then there was only, Gu Yundong turned his head and looked in the direction of the 9 Tigers Mountain. As the saying went, one had to rely on whatever they had. Yongfu village was at the foot of the 9 Tigers Mountain. It was said that the 9 Tigers Mountain was endless, and all kinds of ferocious beasts lived in the depths of the mountains. Even the most skilled hunters in the vicinity did not dare to enter. Gu Yundong felt that she should go to the 9 Tigers Mountain to find an opportunity. After setting her goal, she was temporarily at ease. Later, Chen Yulan knocked on their door and whispered that she was good at cooking. She wanted her to secretly cook dinner for the Wu family. Gu Yundong refused without even finding a reason. The next morning, she carried a basket on her back and headed for the 9 Tigers Mountain. At the foot of the mountain, many children were picking firewood and digging wild vegetables. Further in, they could see some women looking for mushrooms. Gu Yundong had also wanted to find some mushrooms. Seeing this, she could only continue walking in. Then she saw a pheasant. Gu Yundong chuckled. "My luck is not bad. This pheasant is quite fat." She took out the crossbow that she had placed in the basket on her back and aimed it at the pheasant. She had fought with mutated animals during the apocalypse, so it was not a big deal to hunt a pheasant. She threw the pheasant into the basket and continued walking in. When she saw a rabbit again, Gu Yundong was 100 times more confident that he would be able to gather enough money to build a house in a month. However, when she picked up the crossbow and aimed it at the rabbit again, her body suddenly trembled, as if something terrifying was staring at her back. The hair on her body stood on end. She stopped in her tracks and spun around. She aimed the crossbow bolt at the tree behind her and pulled the trigger. Chapter 60, targeted by Shao Qingyuan. However, in the next moment, her eyes widened. The arrow suddenly turned in another direction, and with a swish, the arrowhead finally nailed into another tree. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief and looked up at the man squatting on the tree. "What are you doing here?" If she hadn't reacted quickly, the arrow would have pierced through his head. "Why didn't you say anything? I almost injured you by accident." Shao Qingyuan's gaze landed on the crossbow in her hand. He quickly retracted his gaze and looked at the girl's face again. He did not say anything. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and said, yesterday, my brother came back and said that you saved him and did not let anyone bully him. Thank you. Shao Qingyuan still did not speak. He squatted on the tree and did not move. This time, Yundong finally understood why people called him a wolf cub. This person looked at people like a wolf with a glint in his eyes. It was as if in his eyes, you were prey with nowhere to run. He did not speak, and Yundong would not ask for a rebuff. She nodded and continued walking. After that delay just now, the rabbit had already disappeared. Only when Yundong's figure gradually disappeared into the distance did Shao Qingyuan jump down from the tree. Yundong was not very familiar with the Nine Tigers Mountain and did not have much hunting experience. After the apocalypse, animals had all mutated, so their habits and footprints were naturally different. Moreover, fighting mutated animals was basically a teamwork, and others were responsible for determining the direction. Therefore, she could not rely on the traces of animals on the road to determine which side had prey. She could only rely on her senses. However, after walking for a while, she felt a rustling sound behind her, as if someone was following her. As expected, when she turned around, she saw Shao Qingyuan walking over. Yundong stood still and asked him, "Are you going up the mountain for hunting too? If you're going this way, I'll change my route." Seeing that he was silent, Yundong took it as a tacit agreement and turned to walk to the other side. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, Shao Qingyuan's voice came from behind. "There's a wild boar cave not far ahead." Yundong's eyes lit up. Wild boar. That was a big one. She would definitely earn a lot of silver if she sold it. Wait, a wild boar cave. There should be more than a wild boar inside. Her small arms and legs were not good enough. Moreover, she was not familiar with the terrain and was not confident. It was a little regretful, but Yundong still turned her head and said to Shao Qingyuan, "So you're here to tell me that there's danger over there?" "Thank you." This person was not like the wolf cub that others said. Look, he helped her brother yesterday and came to warn her today. Wasn't that quite a heartwarming action? It was probably because he didn't speak much that people misunderstood. No. Shao Qingyuan looked at her steadily. "I can't handle it alone. I want to work with you. The crossbow in your hand is quite useful. It should be able to help." Yundong almost choked on her own saliva. So she was the one who had misunderstood. "I have a way to sell wild boars." "Well, split the money," Shao Qingyuan said. Yundong was very tempted. Wild boars seemed to be able to seduce people. They swayed in front of her, making her lose interest in small shrimps like pheasants in the basket. She pursed her lips and lowered her head to think about it. Shao Qingyuan looked at the top of her head and smiled faintly. Chapter 61, Yundong's impression. After a while, Yundong gritted her teeth and said, "There's no problem with cooperation, but how confident are you?" "There are a few wild boars in the wild boar cave." "I'm 100% sure." "3 boars. In that case, let's go. Lead the way." Yundong was eager to give it a try. There were 3 wild boars. She would earn a lot of money if she sold them. Shao Qingyuan nodded and walked forward. Yundong followed behind at a moderate distance. With Shao Qingyuan leading the way and cutting down the weeds along the way, Yundong walked exceptionally smoothly. Moreover, Shao Qingyuan did not walk fast. He maintained a certain distance from her. In fact, this person was quite careful. After walking for a while, just as Yundong thought that the two of them would reach their destination in silence, Shao Qingyuan suddenly stopped. When she approached, he pursed his lips slightly and asked, "Aren't you afraid of me?" Yundong was stunned. "Why should one be afraid of you? You should have heard the rumors in the village." She still spoke to him even after hearing the rumors. There was no fear in her eyes, nor did she tell her brother to stay away from him. She even dared to enter the mountains alone to hunt wild boars with him. She was even bolder than he had imagined. Yundong suddenly understood. You mean everyone says that you're an ungrateful wolf cub? She felt that he was indeed a wolf cub. As for not being grateful, that was debatable. Actually, Yundong did not quite believe it. Qingyuan was speechless. She dared to be so straightforward in front of him. Wasn't she afraid that he would be angry and attack her? This was a mountain where there was not even a ghost. Yundong walked forward slowly. Sigh, she still hoped that he could walk in front of him. It was too convenient for someone to open a path for her. However, he had the intention to chat, so she couldn't rush him. It was better to answer quickly so that she could follow behind. I heard it from others. Perhaps one met you earlier than I heard the rumors and had some preconceived impressions. Qingyuan was stunned. What impressions? He was inexplicably nervous when he asked this question. You repay kindness with kindness, and grudge with grudge. He was very similar to her, so Yundong naturally had a good impression of him. Hadn't she once been thought to be cold, unreasonable, and unlikable? Was she even a jinx? Qingyuan suddenly stopped in his tracks. Repay kindness with kindness. It turned out that she had such a high evaluation of him. Back then, when they first met, he had been hitting people. Not to mention the time when he dealt with shopkeeper Pan, he had kicked the constable without a word. When ordinary women saw him, they would probably think that this kind of person did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He was no different from a hooligan who was unruly. She should not have a good impression of him. Why did you stop? Yundong took a few steps forward and happened to see a fork in the road. She did not know which way to go. She turned around and saw that he was still standing there. Qingyuan raised his head and looked at her deeply before striding over. Left. Yundong took the opportunity to say, It's better if you lead the way. I'm not familiar with this place. She finally found an opportunity to follow behind. Qingyuan lowered his head slightly. All right. Yundong did not see it. There seemed to be a sparkle in his lowered eyes. Chapter 62, Is there really a third boar? This time, Qingyuan's movements were even more agile. The two of them walked for nearly half an hour before they finally saw the wild boar cave. Qingyuan stopped Yundong, who was about to move forward. Hide on that tree. You have a crossbow in your hand, which is suitable for long-range shooting. It'll lure the wild boars out later. It'll deal with the first two. You just have to keep an eye on the third one. You're dealing with two. Isn't that too dangerous? No, I know what to do, Qingyuan said. He frowned slightly and said worriedly, Be careful. Yundong nodded, turned around, and climbed up the tree. Qingyuan looked up and saw that she had covered her figure with leaves. This tree trunk was thick enough and was not dangerous. He turned around and walked towards the wild boar cave. Yundong watched as he skillfully approached the wild boar cave. Along the way, he squatted down. She did not know what trap he had set on the ground. Qingyuan had used smoke to chase the wild boars out of the cave. As soon as the wild boars came out, he jumped up the tree. Yundong watched attentively and ran out. Whoa, it was quite big. It weighed about 400 catties. The second one also ran out. It was slightly smaller than the previous one, but it should be more than 300 catties. Yundong had been waiting for the third one, but no matter how she waited, it did not come out. On the other side, Qingyuan waited until the first wild boar stepped into the noose he had set on the ground. Then, he suddenly pulled and jumped down from the tree. The wild boar's front hooves were raised a few centimeters, as if half of its body was standing up, leaving only its two hooves on the ground. It began to struggle crazily, but the rope was firmly tied to the tree. Qingyuan came over without stopping and stabbed the dagger into its neck. Roar, the wild boar cried out in pain as blood gushed out of its body. It glared angrily at Qingyuan. Qingyuan immediately took a big step back, but at this moment, another wild boar ran towards him. Shao Qingyuan was agile. He took a large piece of wood on the ground and smashed it on its head. The wild boar fainted for a moment and instantly became even more irritable and furious. It roared and rushed at him. Shao Qingyuan dodged left and right. The wild boar knocked down 2 trees in a row. Yundong, who was hiding in the tree, could not wait for the third wild boar. She decisively adjusted the direction of the arrow and aimed it at the charging wild boar. However, it was fast. In addition, Shao Qingyuan would approach the wild boar from time to time to attack it, making it difficult to aim. Yundong frowned, but Shao Qingyuan suddenly turned around and ran. The wild boar also chased after him. Yundong was speechless. The man and the pig disappeared. Yundong's gaze finally focused on the wild boar whose leg was still tied by a rope. It was still struggling crazily. However, it had been stabbed by Shao Qingyuan previously and was bleeding a lot now. It gradually lost its strength. Yundong aimed her crossbow at it and shot it in the neck. The wild boar flailed twice more and finally fell to the ground weakly. Yundong slid down from the tree and chased after Shao Qingyuan uneasily. Halfway through the chase, she saw Shao Qingyuan running back. There was no sign of the wild boar behind him. His body was stained with blood. It was unknown if it was his or the wild boar's. "Are you hurt?" Shao Qingyuan shook his head. "No, that wild boar is already dead. I'll go back and deal with the first one. There's no need. I shot another arrow and it stopped moving. But I haven't seen a third wild boar. Are there really 3? Yundong asked suspiciously. Chapter 63, She's very sharp. Shao Qingyuan nodded affirmatively. There are 3 of them. One of them might not be in the wild boar cave. Let's get these 2 down the mountain first, lest the smell of blood attracts other wild beasts. She was really sharp. Yes, hurry up. Yundong could not be bothered to ask anything else and immediately followed him back to the entrance of the wild boar cave. Shao Qingyuan dragged out a raft from the grass. The first wild boar weighed more than 200 kilograms. Yundong was quite strong now, but she was certain that she could not withstand half the weight of the wild boar. It was a pity that she had Shao Qingyuan by her side. Otherwise, she could have easily put the wild boar into her spatial storage. Shao Qingyuan was strong. Yundong helped him. He forced the wild boar onto the raft and dragged it down the mountain. The other wild boar was a little further away. It was not easy to place it on the raft, so he could only pull this one to the foot of the mountain first. Shao Qingyuan was very familiar with this place. He returned much faster than when he came. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he found a place where no one passed by. He asked Yundong to guard the dead boar here while he dragged the other one. When Shao Qingyuan brought the wild boar over again, his body was drenched in sweat. He wiped it casually and said to Yundong, "If such big wild boars are sent to town, we can only sell one at most. The price will be higher if we send it to the county. Are you going?" Yundong looked at the 2 wild boars. It was all right to go to town, but it would take too much time to go to the county. She still could not let go of the 3 children at home. With this round trip and the time spent selling wild boars, she would probably be back at night. Moreover, to be honest, these 2 wild boars were killed by Shao Qingyuan. She felt a little guilty about taking the money from selling the wild boars. That was not right. She had at least helped him drag the raft and guard the wild boar, right? That was hard work. How could she push the hard work money away? After some thought, she handed the pheasant in the basket to Shao Qingyuan. "I won't go to the county. Help me sell this pheasant." "Okay." Shao Qingyuan did not say anything else. He took the pheasant and let Yundong go back first. Yundong was still a little worried. How was he going to send these 2 wild boars to the county? Her space was useless. She was so tired. Yundong sighed and returned home. Only then did he realize that Madame Fong and her daughter were not around. Gu Yunshu said, Auntie Fang's nephew is getting married. They went to the wedding banquet. Auntie Fong also said that she would only be back in 2 days. She asked us to help feed the chickens and pigs. Aunt Fong raised 3 chickens and a pig. She usually caught worms to feed the chickens and went to pick pig grass. Oh, this was acting first and reporting later. Gu Yundong sneered. Yunshu, go to the village chief's house and tell Aunt Shao. Hee, I've already spoken to her, Gu Yunshu said smugly. Actually, if Aunt Fong had said it nicely, he would not have minded helping. In the past, when he was in the Gu family, he had often gone out to gather pig grass. He could do these things. However, Auntie Fang's words made people dislike her. It was as if she was not asking them for help at all, but ordering them. Under Gu Yundong's influence during this period of time, Gu Yunshu would not give in to such people. Gu Yundong patted his head in satisfaction. She turned around and saw that Aunt Fong and Qingyuan had locked the door. The kitchen utensils were all sealed. Even the eggs in the urn had been moved away. She could not help but sneer. They were guarding against them like thieves, but they actually wanted their help. Dream on. However, since the mother and daughter were not around, Gu Yundong made a sumptuous dinner. Anyway, there was meat in her spatial storage. The sky had just turned dark when Shao Qingyuan came over. Chapter 64, 80 Taels of Silver. Gu Yundong went up to him expectantly. Did you sell them all? The 2 of them stood at the kitchen door. There was a shadow under the roof. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see the 2 of them standing here. Shao Qingyuan took out silver ingots. The 2 wild boars were sold for a total of 80 taels of silver. The price of the county's domestic pigs is 18 copper coins a catty. The wild boar is much more expensive, 80 copper coins. The smaller wild boar is 330 catties. I sold it to the restaurant. The shopkeeper knows me there. Including the pheasant, I asked for 30 taels of silver. The big one was fancied by a rich young master. He was generous and directly gave me 50 taels of silver. A total of 80 taels. Here is the 40 taels you deserve. Take it. Gu Yundong knew that wild boars were expensive, but she did not expect to earn 40 taels in one go. No. Wasn't it inappropriate to take 40 taels of silver from him? She stared at the silver ingot and tried her best to restrain herself. She said very politely, you were the one who killed the 2 wild boars. I just helped. Besides, you were the one who paid the villagers to pull the wild boars to the county city. It's enough for me to take the hard work money. She had heard in the afternoon that Shao Qingyuan had called a few strong laborers from the village to help pull the wild boars over. Of course, he had to pay. His reputation in the village was really not good. If these people did not want money, they would not have any contact with him. However, when the 2 huge wild boars were pulled down the mountain, it still caused a commotion in the village. Many people wanted to go up and say a few words, but they were afraid of him. They could only follow the cart that contained the wild boars for a long time. They turned around and discussed in the village with relish. They were all guessing how much this wild boar could be sold for. Shao Qingyuan looked at her glowing eyes and laughed secretly. She clearly wanted the silver. Back then, we agreed to split it equally. The salary is only 1 tael of silver. You gave me a pheasant, so we're even. Take this silver. I don't want to be a person who goes back on my word. Gu Yundong nodded solemnly. In order to prevent you from becoming a despicable person who goes back on your word, I'll accept this silver. Shao Qingyuan was speechless. So I have to thank you? Gu Yundong hugged the money, and she was overjoyed. It would be better to have more gentlemen like Shao Qingyuan in the future. They could still work together in the future. How was this a wolf cub? It was obvious that he was a good person. Now that she had the money to build a house, Gu Yundong was happy. She asked casually, "You just came back from the county? Have you eaten dinner?" "No." Yundong replied with an, "Oh," and did not seem to hear what he said at all. It was only when he turned around and entered the kitchen that she suddenly came back to her senses and looked at his back in surprise. What are you doing? Didn't you want me to stay for dinner?" Shao Qingyuan had an expression that said, "If not, why did you ask me if I had eaten?" Yundong looked at him and then at the silver in his arms. He said affirmatively, "Of course. You worked so hard. It's only right for you to have a meal." Yundong followed him into the kitchen. "The dishes are a little cold. I'll cook egg fried rice for you. That'll be faster." "All right." Shao Qingyuan sat on the stool and watched as she quickly picked eggs and scooped rice. With a ripping sound, the fragrance suddenly spread out and filled the entire kitchen. For some reason, this smell actually made Shao Qingyuan feel calm. Chapter 65. His previous surname was Li. "This is my first time eating egg fried rice." Shao Qingyuan looked at the big bowl in front of him. The golden eggs and white rice grains were intertwined on it. The grains were distinct. Amidst the smoke, a rich smell kept drilling into his nose, making his appetite increase. Yundong had just taken off her apron and was stunned when she heard that. Then, she remembered that he had been treated as a wolf cub. She had heard a lot about Shao Qingyuan in the past 2 days. Shao Qingyuan was carried out of the Nine Tigers Mountain by his grandfather. It was said that he was a newborn baby at that time. At that time, there was the corpse of a wolf beside him. It was unknown how it died. His grandfather's surname was Li. At that time, the Li family's eldest branch only had 2 daughters and had never had a son, so Grandpa Li put Shao Qingyuan under the name of the couple. Later on, the eldest branch gave birth to a son and did not treat Shao Qingyuan very well. When Shao Qingyuan was 14 years old, he was chased out by the eldest branch. Grandpa Li refused to accept it and left the Li family with Shao Qingyuan. However, not long after, Grandpa Li fell seriously ill and passed away. From then on, Shao Qingyuan changed his surname to Shao. This surname was discovered when he was still an infant. Shao Qingyuan's life in the past 10 years was actually not much different from the previous Yundong. Later on, he was alone and probably had never learned how to cook egg fried rice. However, Yundong did not know that Shao Qingyuan was not just incapable of cooking egg fried rice. He was simply a kitchen killer, the kind that could burn down half the kitchen with just one meal. Ever since Grandpa Li passed away, as long as the weather was hot, he would mostly work in the town and county and buy some food on the streets. Whenever he was in the village, he would buy dry rations and steamed buns in town for a few days. His food was very rough. Yundong was at a loss for words as she watched him gobble down the food. After he finished eating and left, Yundong returned to his room with the warm 40 taels of silver. The 3 of them had already fallen asleep in the room. Yundong's heart was relieved and he quickly fell asleep. However, Shao Qingyuan had returned. At this moment, he was on a roof not far away. One hand was behind his head, and the other was touching his stomach. He was lying on his back and looking at the sky above his head. The light in his eyes was even brighter than in the day. Yundong slept contentedly. Without Madame Fong and her daughter's banter early in the morning, she felt that the entire world was quiet. With the money, she couldn't wait to go to the homestead to look at the newly built house. This time, she brought Madame Yang and the other 2 along. The homestead was in full swing. Fong Danning had already brought more than 20 young men to work. When he saw her, Fong Danning immediately walked over. "How is it? Everyone looks good, right?" It was indeed not bad. Most of these people were from this village, and some were from the neighboring village. They were all hired by Fong Danning. Yundong offered a high price, so the people who came were naturally happy. Most people only paid 30 copper coins a day to build a house. Although lunch was included, they only ate boiled cabbage and plain steamed buns. How could these be worth 10 copper coins? They might as well go home and eat their own food. Someone also greeted Yundong. Seeing that the young lady was clean and refreshing, their impression of her increased. Yundong smiled and nodded one by one. Seeing that everyone was sweating profusely, she thought for a moment and turned to knock on the door of the house next door. Her homestead was remote, and there were only 2 or 3 neighbors around. Chapter 66. Zeng family. The family's surname was Zeng, and the house they lived in was not big. The person who opened the door was a 6 or 7-year-old girl. When she saw an unfamiliar person standing at the door, she asked timidly, "Who are you looking for?" As soon as she finished speaking, another woman rushed over and looked at Yundong in confusion. "Hello, Auntie. I'm Yundong, who has just come to Yongfu village. The house next door that is being built belongs to my family. We will be neighbors from now on." One came over firstly to greet Auntie. "I've disturbed you during this period of time. Secondly, I want to ask Auntie for a favor." Yundong said with a smile, her attitude very kind. Madame Dong felt that she was very refined when she heard her speak. She knew that this girl was from the Gu family next door who wanted to build a house of bricks and tiles. They would definitely have a lot of contact in the future, so she quickly retreated and said, "Let's talk first." Yundong entered and casually glanced at the Gu residence's courtyard. It was very clean. The courtyard was not big, and the house looked like it had been in disrepair for a long time. Madame Dong brought her into the central room and asked, "What do you want me to help with?" "Tell me." "I want to borrow Aunt's kitchen to make a pot of ginger tea," Yundong explained. "The weather is a little cold now. The uncles outside are helping my family build a house and they are sweating. When the wind blows, they will easily catch a cold. Some ginger tea can warm their stomach. I wonder if it's convenient for Aunt?" Madame Dong was only stunned for a moment before she immediately nodded. "It's convenient. Of course it's convenient. It won't take much. Sit for a while. We have ginger at home. I'll get it for you." The ginger was all grown by her family. There was a lot. Madame Dong quickly brought her a handful. Yundong did not stand on ceremony. Not only did he borrow ginger and firewood, but he also borrowed their bucket and bowl. After cooking, he carried them out with Madame Yang. Fong Danning was still wondering where she had gone. When he saw her carrying ginger tea over, a trace of surprise flashed across his face. Yundong told him what he meant. "Everybody has been working for half a day and your mouth is dry. One saw someone scoop some raw water and drink it. If this continues, he will easily fall sick. So I borrowed the Zeng family's kitchen to make a pot of ginger tea. It's warm and comfortable to drink. If you're not used to the taste of ginger tea, there's also boiling water. Uncle Fong, get everyone to come over and drink it." Fong Danning had never seen any hirer who made ginger tea. At most, they would put boiled water aside and let them drink it. This young lady was really not bad. This way, everyone's hearts were hot and they worked even harder. After Yundong and Fong Danning finished speaking, she returned to the Zeng family. Madame Dong was cleaning up in the kitchen. When she saw her enter, she smiled and did not say anything. Yundong took out a handful of copper coins and stuffed them into Madame Dong's hands. Madame Dong was shocked and quickly returned the copper coins. "What are you doing?" "It's just a few pieces of ginger." Auntie, this money is not only for today. It will take more than a month to build my house. I can't come over every day, so I want to trouble Auntie to help me cook a pot every day. There's no need to make ginger tea every day. The boiling water is fine too. Take this money as my salary for hiring Auntie. Besides, someone has to pick the firewood and water from Auntie's house." Madame Dong was stunned. She looked down at the 200 copper coins in her hand and thought of the man who could only lie on the bed after his leg was smashed. She also thought of the few young children at home. She gritted her teeth and took the money back. Thank you. Then I'll have to trouble you, Aunt. Gu Yundong then left the Zeng family's courtyard. Unexpectedly, just as she stepped out, she saw the door of the neighboring house open. She looked at the man who had just stepped out of the door in surprise. Chapter 67. Finally here Shao Qingyuan turned around and saw her. He did not say anything. He held a coarse steamed bun in his hand and took a big bite. There were immediately some steamed bun crumbs stuck to his dry lips. It was so dry that it seemed difficult to swallow. Gu Yundong felt as if her throat and eyes were blocked, especially when she saw a small piece of steamed bun fall to the ground and smash into the soil, creating a small pit. Gu Yundong was speechless. How hard was it? Could it be digested? She couldn't help but swallow. Behind her, she heard Madame Dong's hurried footsteps. Yundong, one don't have anything good at home. Those are vegetables planted by my family. There are many in the courtyard. Take them back and eat them. She walked out with a basket in her hand. When she looked up, she saw Shao Qingyuan from next door. It's Qingyuan. You didn't go out today? Why are you eating steamed buns again? How can you eat steamed buns every day? Come to Auntie's house to eat tonight. Madame Dong seemed to be quite familiar with Shao Qingyuan, so she spoke much more casually. Shao Qingyuan took another bite of the hard steamed bun in front of Gu Yundong and said coldly, "No, I'm busy." With that, he left. Gu Yundong wanted to ask him if he wanted to drink some water to wash down the food, but he had already disappeared. Madame Dong turned around and saw her expression. She immediately misunderstood and said carefully, "Yundong, don't be afraid. Qingyuan isn't as scary as the villagers say. His house is next door. We've been neighbors for a few years and one knows Qingyuan's character better than those people. He's very good." Gu Yundong was stunned. This was the first time she had heard a positive comment about Shao Qingyuan. Unexpectedly, he lived next door. Wouldn't he be her neighbor in the future? Wasn't this helpful neighbor who was on good terms with her a good thing? Hence, Gu Yundong nodded. "Aunt, I know. I'm not the kind of person who will believe whatever people say." She took the basket from Madame Dong's hand. "I won't stand on ceremony with the vegetables." Madame Dong heaved a sigh of relief. "Just take it. Come back after you're done eating them." Gu Yundong led the three of them back. When they passed by their homestead, they saw that the young men had stopped to rest and drink ginger tea. When she saw them, they immediately greeted her warmly and thanked her very much for the ginger tea. They expressed that their heart would feel warm after drinking it and that they would work hard to reassure her. Gu Yundong nodded and told them to be careful. When she walked over, someone whispered, "This young lady from the Gu family is really good. Not only do we earn a lot of money from working for her, but we also feel comfortable. Sigh, it's a pity that she doesn't know the ways of the world." That's right. There's no adult man in this family to protect her. If she has money, she should hide it. She just arrived in a strange village and doesn't know anyone. She dares to spend so much money to build a green brick and tile house. This is too eye-catching. I reckon the hooligans in the village will soon set their sights on her. Shall we find Brother Feng and ask him to remind the young lady? Okay. Feng Danning had indeed told Gu Yundong to be more careful these few days, especially when she slept at night. He told her to lock the doors and windows, set a trap by the door, and shout if there was any movement. However, he did not expect that night, a few thieves would sneak into Madame Fang's house. At this moment, Gu Yundong, who was lying on the bed, suddenly opened her eyes. She stared at the dark room and curled his lips slightly. They were finally here. Chapter 68, Where is she? Gu Yundong quietly sat up on the bed. He glanced at the three people who were still sleeping soundly and shook Gu Yunshu awake. The little thing was extremely sleepy and could not help but rub her eyes. He opened his mouth and called out, "Sister, Shu." Gu Yundong lowered her voice and pointed at the door. She said in a low voice, "Do you still remember what one told you before?" Gu Yunshu suddenly sobered up and thought of what his eldest sister had said to him. "I remember that someone wanted to steal our money, cut off our escape route, and dig up our ancestral grave." He clenched his fists. "Big sister, did the thieves come?" Thanks to his training during his escape, although Gu Yunshu hated these thieves, he was not afraid. Therefore, not only did he not hide under the blanket, but he also looked like he was about to go out and fight with them. "Yes." Gu Yundong smiled and silently opened the door of the room. He walked to the chair in the central room and sat down. Then, he stared at the two-door door not far away, waiting for them to enter. Gu Yunshu immediately took out a wooden stick from the corner and moved to her side, ready for battle. At this moment, in the courtyard outside, four sneaky figures were climbing down from the wall. Perhaps because the wall was a little high, one of them even sprained his ankle and almost cried out. Another person beside him immediately covered his mouth and nose with great force, almost suffocating him. Which way? After adapting to the position in the courtyard, these people began to observe the surrounding environment. This was really their first time coming to Madame Fang's house. After all, there was a lot of trouble in front of a widow's door, and this widow was the second daughter-in-law of the village chief's family. Therefore, these thieving hooligans would not wander around the vicinity for no reason, let alone have the chance to enter this house. Now that Madame Fang was not at home, there was a rich person living at home who did not have any backing. TSK, the prey had delivered themselves to their door. "I've asked around. The Gu family of 4 lives in the room on the left." "Okay, 111 go in with Big Qian and Zhuangzi in a while. Gosheng, you stay outside and keep watch." "Sure thing. Brother, I've asked around. The Gu family's house costs at least 70 to 80 taels. One reckons she's already given Feng Danning a few taels. The rest are probably in the room. Don't worry about the 2 children from the Gu family. The children are all sleeping soundly. When we go in later, we'll follow the usual rules. Big Qian and I will use daggers to take care of the 2 older ones. In case they wake up, we can threaten them not to make a sound. Brother, you will find the silver." When I think about how we're going to have dozens of taels of silver soon, I'm so excited that one want to go to the toilet. Good for you. Let me tell you, it's definitely not just a few dozen taels. Think about it. If you only have 70 to 80 taels, would you be willing to take them all out to build such a big green brick house? It's not like that a straw hut can't be lived in. I think it's at least a few hundred taels. Damn, I'm so excited that I want to go to the toilet. The few of them approached the central room excitedly. They did not know that Gu Yundong would dare to build a house worth 100 taels of silver when she did not even have 70 to 80 taels of silver. Gu Yundong heard the sound of footsteps approaching and also heard a faint groan. The corners of her lips curled up as she waited for these people to walk right into her trap. However, after waiting and waiting for a long time, the door was still not pushed open. Gu Yundong held the stick and almost fell asleep again. Gu Yundong finally lost her patience. He opened the door of the central room and looked out. Where was she? Chapter 69. Yes, he did it. The courtyard was cold and empty. Not to mention people, there was not even a shadow. If not for the fact that the footprints in the courtyard were especially messy under the moonlight, indicating that a few people had indeed approached this place just now, Gu Yundong would have suspected that the voices she had heard previously were all illusions. But, why did the thieves who were still here just now disappear? Gu Yunshu ran out. Eldest sister? Why is there no one? Gu Yundong rubbed his chin and thought for a while. Could it be that they have other schemes? What? I don't know. Gu Yundong let him enter the house first. She went to the kitchen and toilet to check. There was indeed no one there, so he returned. Gu Yunshu hurriedly asked in a low voice, Eldest sister, have you found them? No, maybe, they came here tonight to scout the area. That was all she could think of. But for the sake of caution, Yundong did not sleep the entire night and was highly focused. Hence, when she went out the next day, there were obvious dark circles under her eyes. Therefore, she planned to make a trip to the homestead in the morning and catch up on sleep as soon as she returned, in case those thieves came again at night. Unexpectedly, when she went to the Zeng family's courtyard, she saw Qingyuan again. There was no one in the courtyard. Madame Dong was making ginger tea. Her daughter, the 7-year-old girl she had seen yesterday, was helping to light the fire. Her 9-year-old son and 5-year-old son were not at home. They had gone out to collect firewood. Yundong sat down in front of Qingyuan and asked him, "Did Aunt ask you to come for dinner?" "No," Qingyuan said. "I'm waiting for you here." Yundong was surprised. "Waiting for me? What's the matter? Are you going up the mountain to hunt wild boars again?" "Ah, did you discover the traces of the third wild boar?" Qingyuan, "I didn't go up the mountain for the past 2 days. I was waiting for you to tell you that your house is being targeted." Qingyuan's expression was serious. "Last night, 4 hooligans climbed into your courtyard to steal something. You saw them?" "Yes." Qingyuan nodded. "One knocked them out and took them away. One had to leave their name behind when doing a good deed." Yundong did not know whether to say it or not. Her expression was especially complicated, and her dark circles were even more eye-catching. Qingyuan could not help but frown. "What's wrong?" Yundong thought that he had good intentions and she had to appreciate it. Hence, she tried her best to be tactful and said, "Actually, I've been waiting for the thieves to come to my house for the past 2 days. It's like this. One think that many people will be jealous of my house after it's built. Instead of guarding against people playing tricks all day, it's better to make an example out of them and let everyone see the consequences of having designs on my family. Don't think that my family is easy to bully without an adult man. Last night, I sat in the central room, waiting for them." As she was speaking, she seemed to have heard someone grunt. She originally thought that the thieves had accidentally bumped into something and cried, but it turned out that it was not the case. Qingyuan tightened his grip and pursed his lips tightly. Yundong really had no intention of blaming him. However, Qingyuan took a deep look at her dark circles and suddenly stood up. "Got it." Then, he left. His long legs were striding. Yundong did not even have time to say, "Thank you." She touched her forehead and secretly sighed. After exchanging a few words with Madame Dong, Yundong went back and slept for the entire afternoon. She was not particularly sleepy at night. Hence, when she heard the commotion in the courtyard outside, she suddenly sat up from the bed. Chapter 70, Sent back this time, Yundong did not wake up her brother who was sleeping soundly holding his stomach. She walked out quietly. The moonlight was still as bright as yesterday, illuminating the entire courtyard. As soon as Yundong opened the door of the central room, she saw 4 black shadows in the middle of the courtyard. He looked closer and realized that they were 4 sacks. What were they? There was no movement from the sack. Yundong looked around and hesitated for a moment before going forward to untie the rope on the sack. Then, he saw a human head. Whoa! Yundong suddenly took a step back. To be honest, if she had not experienced many things and did not have a strong mental fortitude, she would have thought that there was a murder and body dumping case. She would have screamed in fear and summoned her neighbors over. Who the F***ck left him here? Yundong cursed whoever did this. She calmed herself down and went forward again. Now that she took a closer look, the person in the sack was still covered with a black cloth. He looked like a thief. Yundong's eyes widened and she suddenly came back to her senses. She looked at the 4 sacks again. Wasn't that the number of people Qingyuan had told her? So these people were thrown here by Qingyuan? Yundong felt as if a mouthful of blood was stuck in her chest. She could not spit it out. Her head hurt. After a while, she went forward and patted the face of the person in the sack. Hey, wake up, wake up. Ugh, Zhuangzi opened his eyes in a daze. His mind was in a daze for a while. In the next moment, he seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly shouted, "Hero!" Before he could say the word "spare my life," his mouth was blocked by a rag. He whimpered twice, and his eyes adapted to the moonlight. He finally saw who the person in front of him was. Zhuangzi's eyes widened. Wasn't this the little girl from the Gu family? He remembered that, last night, the few of them came to her house to steal something. Then, they were hit on the back of the head. When they woke up, their eyes were covered and their mouths were gagged. He didn't know where they were, but they were ambushed. At that time, he thought that he was going to be trafficked into a black kiln to be a laborer and live a life worse than death. However, before he could escape, he was beaten half to death and fainted again. When he woke up again, that person beat him up again. He thought that he had encountered a pervert. He did not expect that when he woke up, he would actually see who the person in front of him was. Could it be that she was the one who knocked out the four of them last night? No. One don't think so. Yundong seemed to see the changes in life in his eyes. In the end, under his frightened gaze, she finally said faintly, "What's your name?" Answer the question properly and don't shout. Otherwise, you might lose your fingers. Yundong held a dagger and pulled out his bound hand. The dagger flashed coldly and was placed on his finger. With a little force, blood could be seen. Zhuangzi was scared to death. Hence, after Yundong removed the cloth ball from his mouth, he immediately answered obediently, "My name is Zhuangzi. You came to my house in the middle of the night to steal something, right?" Zhuangzi immediately shook his head and denied, "No, we were just passing by." Before he could finish speaking, he felt a sharp pain on his finger and hurriedly nodded. "We're here to steal. We saw that you can build such a big house, so you must be rich. There's no man in your family, so we can easily succeed. After that, you don't have anyone to trouble us. Other than me, there are Liangzi, Big Qian, and Gosheng. Liangzi is our big brother." "That's right. Didn't you give me a clear explanation?" 111 Treat you better tomorrow. Yundong smiled and put away the dagger. For some reason, Zhuangzi shuddered. Why? She was clearly a 13-year-old girl. Why did she make him feel so scary? Could it be that he had been traumatized by her a few times during the day and was subconsciously afraid of her? What does tomorrow mean? You'll know when the time comes. Yundong raised his hand and Zhuangzi fainted again. Chapter 71. Time to settle the score. The next morning, not long after dawn, a few children ran around the village and shouted, "Hurry up and take a look. The Gu family has caught thieves. It's Liangzi, Big Qian, and Gosheng." One heard that they were caught on the spot when they were stealing. An adult, who was about to go to the field, could not help but stop the children. "What did you say just now? Who caught those hooligans?" The children were still holding the candy in their hands. As they licked it lovingly and reluctantly, they said, "It's the Gu family that wants to build a green brick house in our village. The four of them have been arrested. Now, they're at second Aunt Chen's house." "What?" An adult beside him had a look of disbelief on his face. Doesn't the Gu family not even have a strong labor? They still have the ability to catch those hooligans? Don't tell me it's the opposite. Let's go and take a look. One don't think it's possible. Those bastards steal all day long. They're very skilled. They've never been caught on the spot." "That's right. I heard that last time. They even set their sights on Master Wang. There were many men in that family, and 2 chickens were even stolen. Master Wang went to Liangzi's family to settle the score, but because there was no evidence to prove that they did it, he could only suffer. Let's go and see what's going on." The children went all the way and even went to the 4 people's houses to tell them. Gosheng and Big Qian's house was not in Yongfu village. It was in the neighboring village and was not far away. Two slightly older children got 2 more pieces of candy from Gu Yundong and immediately ran to their houses to inform them. When the people in the village walked to the Chen house in 2s and 3s, they saw 4 people tied up on the trunk of the big tree outside their house. Wasn't it Liangzi and the others? There was a stool beside the tree, and Gu Yundong sat there eating melon seeds. Madame Yang and the others were not around. They should be in the house and had not come out. Everyone stopped in their tracks and did not dare to go forward. It was Feng Daning's wife, Lu Hohot, who came over from behind. She was the first to speak to her. Yundong, what's going on? I heard that these 4 bastards went to your house to steal things and were caught red-handed by you. You caught them? As Feng Daning was building a house for Gu Yundong, he was full of praise when he mentioned her at home. Lu Hohot had only seen Gu Yundong twice. Compared to the other people in the village who had never even spoken to her, she was more familiar with her. Gu Yundong gave her half of the melon seeds. Auntie, eat them. I made them myself. Lu Hohot looked at the fragrant melon seeds in her hand in a daze. She could not help but eat one. Yes, it really smelled good. She could not be bothered to ask anymore and started eating. This scene made the onlookers, who wanted to know the truth, want to go up and hit her. Eat, eat, eat. You haven't eaten melon seeds in half your life, right? Gu Yundong looked around and immediately saw Liangzi and his family from afar. She stuffed the remaining melon seeds into Lu Hohot's hands and clapped her hands. She walked to the 4 of them and woke them up. It's dawn. It's time to settle the score. Wake up. Zhuangzi was the first to open his eyes. When he saw her, he immediately felt his fingers begin to hurt. He immediately squeezed out a very ugly fawning smile. Liangzi was the second to wake up. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw that they were tied up. In front of him was Gu Yundong's harmless face. He immediately shouted angrily, "Stupid girl, did you tie us up? Let go quickly, or 111 sell you to a brothel." Chapter 72, Slander. Gu Yundong snorted and punched him in the stomach. Liangzi almost vomited. He widened his eyes and scolded with difficulty, "Stupid girl." Liangzi's family, who had just run over, looked up and saw this scene. They immediately rushed up to hit her. Where did this bitch come from? She just came to our village and dares to deal with our village. Do you think there's no one in our family? The person who scolded him was Liangzi's mother, Jin Yuexiang. She was in her 40s and was running on her feet. The first to rush up and hit her was Liangzi's father, Hu Qianlai. His large palm slapped her head like a bowl. However, just as he arrived in front of Gu Yundong, he heard a sneer. Then, he felt a pain in his stomach and fell back 2 to 3 meters. Tisk. Fortunately, Hu Qianlai was strong. Otherwise, he would not have fallen back, but would have flown back. But even so, Gu Yundong's kick still stunned all the onlookers present. Jin Yuexiang, who had been cursing and running over, suddenly stopped. Her voice was stuck in her throat like a duck that could not breathe, and her face was filled with shock. The scene was dead silent. Gu Yundong retracted his leg and patted the bottom of her pants. She then asked with a smile, "You rushed over to shout for a fight the moment you arrived. It was clearly your son who was caught stealing into my house. As parents, aren't you ashamed and apologetic? Instead, you're finding trouble with me, the victim. With parents like you, no wonder your son became a thief." Her voice finally made everyone react. Jin Yuexiang hurriedly ran to Hu Qianlai's side and helped him up. Hu Qianlai was furious, but his stomach hurt too much. He didn't expect this girl's feet to be so strong, like an adult man. The 2 of them immediately did not dare to go forward and attack anymore. However, when they saw their son tied up there, their hearts still ached and they were angry. They could only stand far away and curse, "Whose son is a thief? You're the thief, woman." Don't tell me you're trying to blame my son for being a thief when you've stolen something. I see that you're dressed alluringly and indecently at such a young age. You might have been caught by my son last night. Now, you're a thief and you're calling my son a thief. The pain in Liangzi's stomach finally eased. He didn't see his father being kicked away. When he came back to his senses, he heard his mother cursing. He hurriedly nodded and echoed, yes, yes, yes. We realized that she had an ambiguous relationship with someone, which ruined the reputation of our village. That's why we couldn't stand it and wanted to catch her in the act. I didn't expect that man to know how to punch and kick. He knocked the four of us unconscious. As he spoke, he felt as if he had found the truth. He became even more excited as he spoke. That man caught us the night before yesterday and locked us in the house for the entire day. Look at the injuries on our faces. This is how they came about. He wanted us to admit that we stole money. The more Liangzi spoke, the more he felt that this was the case. Otherwise, why would they faint the moment they entered the courtyard the night before? They had been hungry for the entire day yesterday and had been beaten up for the entire day. He did not believe that a little girl like Yundong could do this. She definitely had a lover. However, what he said made sense. The surrounding villagers felt that it made sense and began to whisper to each other. On the other hand, Lu Hohat spat out a melon seed shell on Liangzi's face. Are you shameless? Who in our village doesn't know what kind of person you are? Everyone knows how sneaky you are. Aren't you afraid of retribution for slandering a young lady? Liangzi glared at her fiercely. How am one slandering her? I'm not the only one who saw it. If you don't believe me, ask Zhuangzi and the others, right? Chapter 73. Conditions for release. Liangzi looked at Zhuangzi from the corner of his eyes, indicating for him to speak quickly. Zhuangzi lowered his head slightly and whispered, "Stop talking." He had been woken up from the sack last night. He was different from Liangzi. There were still knife marks on his fingers. Gu Yundong's cold and sinister expression last night had left a deep impression in his heart. Seeing that he was not cooperating, Liangzi gritted his teeth in anger and shouted at Big Qian and Gosheng, "Tell me, did I say anything wrong? Did this brat get a wild man to knock us out last night and beat us up for the entire day?" The two of them looked at each other and were about to answer when they were kicked by Zhuangzi. Although their bodies and hands were tied, their feet were free. Ouch, they both cried, momentarily at a loss for words. They were actually still a little confused. Why had they been knocked unconscious and tied up here? What was going on? Originally, they followed Liangzi's lead. Whatever Liangzi said, they would do. But now, Zhuangzi did not allow them to say anything. What was going on? With their hesitation and Lu Hohat's explanation, the villagers believed Gu Yundong. When Jin Yuexiang saw that everyone was pointing at them, she immediately jumped up. Liangzi is right. They went out the night before last and didn't come back. She must have beaten them up for the entire day. My poor son. Just because the two of us doted on him and didn't let him work, his reputation in the village is bad. Now that he finally did a good deed, no one believes him. Stupid girl, little slut, quickly let my son go. A shoe had appeared in Gu Yundong's hand. She walked to Liangzi and raised her hand to slap him. Jin Yuexiang screamed, "What are you doing? If you curse me again, 111 slap him. Don't you dare." Jin Yuexiang was about to rush over when Gu Yundong turned his head and smiled at her. He raised his foot. "Come here." Jin Yuexiang was about to reach her. She hurriedly stopped her legs and did not dare to go forward. This girl could even kick her man away. If she went up, she might even lose half her life. You wretched girl, you, slap. 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 Gu Yundong did not hold back at all. Come, continue. Jin Yuexiang saw that blood was flowing from the corner of her son's mouth and was so angry that her body was trembling. She couldn't care less and pounced on her. Gu Yundong did as she promised and kicked her. Come up and try again. She raised her eyebrows at Hu Qianlai and glanced at the families of the others who rushed over. Hu Qianlai looked at the old woman who was screaming and did not dare to move. Zhuangzi's parents had actually arrived earlier, but the two of them were honest. Now, they felt a little guilty and did not have the face to cause trouble for Gu Yundong. Moreover, Gu Yundong was so cruel that they did not dare to do so. Gao Xing's father was also here. At this moment, he was glaring at Gao Sheng. He was not looking at Gu Yundong, but at Gao Sheng. Big Qian's family did not come. Since they were already here, Hu Qianlai wanted to urge the others to go with him. If the couple could not defeat Gu Yundong, could they not take down a little girl together? But before he could speak, Gao Xing's father, Zhao Zhu, stepped forward and asked Gu Yundong, "How can you let them go?" Chapter 74, County Magistrate listens to me. Gu Yundong looked at him. Zhao Zhu was quite burly, completely different from Gao Xing's thin and weak appearance. Gu Yundong did not beat around the bush. Since your son was caught by me while stealing in my place, it's simple. Each person will pay 5 taels of silver, and 111 let them go. Zhao Zhu frowned. Hu Qianlai had already cursed loudly, dream on. You can snatch 5 taels of silver. I won't give you a single copper coin. Gao Xing's father, why are you talking nonsense with her? Let's attack together. You're strong. Can a little girl like her beat a few of us at the same time? Zhao Zhu pursed his lips, but Gu Yundong smiled at Hu Qianlai. I think you've forgotten who 1 a.m. As she spoke, she glanced around. These words were not meant for Hu Qianlai and the others, but for everyone in the village. One fled from Yongning Prefecture to Xuanhe Prefecture and then to Yongfu Village. On the way to Yongning Prefecture, thieves ran rampant, refugees were everywhere. Corpses were everywhere, and people ate each other's children. I saw more dead people on the way than the villages here combined. But now, I'm standing here unscathed with surplus food and my mother and siblings. What do you think I relied on? Everyone present fell silent. That's right, what did she rely on? Beautiful? She was about to starve to death. Who would fancy a little girl? Money? Those bandits would snatch it right away. Could it be that you would be safe if you paid a portion? There was only one way to do that, to be ruthless. Look at the 2 kicks she gave Hu Qianlai and Jin Yuexiang just now. Look at the way she held her shoes and slapped Liangzi. How was she like those 13-year-old girls in their village who didn't even dare to argue with others? One came to Yongfu village to settle down, but that doesn't mean I'm easy to bully. If you dare to come to my house to steal, you have to pay the price. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving. You can try. Zhao Zhu stopped talking. Hu Qianlai finally realized that this girl did not seem to be easy to bully. Only Jin Yuexiang did not understand the situation. She pointed at Gu Yundong and shouted, "One won't give them any money. If you have the ability, don't let them go. If you have the ability, beat them to death. Do you dare?" Gu Yundong shook his head. I wouldn't dare. Jin Yuexiang was pleased. She knew it. Could it be that Gu Yundong dared to kill someone? Escape was escape. So what if she was ruthless back then? Now, in their Yongfu village, could she casually kill someone? She was just bluffing. I wouldn't dare. Since you don't want to pay, I'll beat you up again, and report you to the authorities, Gu Yundong said coldly. The smile on Jin Yuexiang's face froze. Report to the authorities? Are you crazy? The commoners were not willing to interact with the government. Entering the government office was not as simple as losing a layer of skin. At that time, it would not be something that could be resolved with 5 taels of silver. That's right. Report it to the officials. When the time comes, let the county magistrate beat them up. They've been stealing for so long. They might be tortured dozens of times to extract a confession. They might be able to spit out a lot of things. When the judgment comes later, you'll have to compensate for everything that has been lost in the village over the years. Jin Yuexiang's expression changed slightly. You're saying that the county magistrate will beat them as you say? As if the county magistrate will listen to you. Let me tell you, if you report it to the officials, you won't be able to gain anything. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. How do you know that the county magistrate won't listen to me? Everyone present was stunned. No, it couldn't be, right? Could it be that Gu Yundong knew the county magistrate? After all, this person was not a local. No one knew her background. Seeing how confident she was, the villagers were a little skeptical. However, just as everyone was whispering, a man's voice suddenly sounded from behind the crowd. Why didn't one know that the county magistrate knew a small village girl like you? Chapter 75. Can't stay here anymore. Everyone looked back and saw Madame Fong and her daughter standing behind the crowd. They did not know when these two people had returned. Beside them stood a young man who looked like he was from a rich family. This person pretended to be handsome and waved his fan. He slowly walked over from the back of the crowd and stood beside Zhao Zhu. He raised his eyebrows and sized up Gu Yundong. You're just a little girl. How dare you deceive your neighbors with the name of the county magistrate? You're quite bold. Qingyuan hurriedly followed and introduced him to everyone. This is the young master of the Lu family in the county. Young Master Lu and the young master of the county magistrate's family are classmates and good friends. Yundong, you're too bold. How dare you deceive the county magistrate? If the Lord finds out, you'll be beheaded. Gu Yundong did not know who this person was, but she did not expect Qingyuan to introduce him. Well, there's no problem then. She looked at young Master Lu. Young Master Lu is only familiar with the county magistrate's young master. How do you know who the county magistrate knows? Moreover, even if young Master Lu and the county magistrate are on good terms, so what? Could it be that His Excellency will tell you if everybody he knows? Lu Wei was at a loss for words. That seemed to make sense. In fact, he had only met the county magistrate a few times. Do you really know the county magistrate? Gu Yundong chuckled. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. She did not know the county magistrate, but she knew the prefecture magistrate. Lu Wei was a little uncertain. Seeing that she did not look guilty at all, he hesitated again. 111. Ask another day. Actually, he was just saying. How could he really dare to say these words in front of the county magistrate? Hu Qianlai and Jin Yuexiang were really speechless now. What should they do? This girl didn't seem to be afraid at all. She couldn't really be captured by the officials, right? Liangzi was a son of theirs that they had when they were old. They always spoiled him, which was why he had such a reckless personality. Zhao Zhu was the one who could see the situation clearly. He was straightforward. All right, 5 taels of silver then. Zhuangzi's parents looked at each other and said in a low voice with a bitter expression, our family can't fork out 5 taels of silver now. Can you give us more time? Well, pool it together. Sure. Hu Qianlai was unhappy. He rolled his eyes and said, he's giving you 5 taels of silver, but what did you do to our Liangzi? At most, it'll give you 1 tael. Liangzi was the one who was beaten the most. When he heard this, he was a little unconvinced. Father, mother, I'm really not wrong. This bitch has a man. We were beaten up for the entire day yesterday. Zhuangzi finally couldn't take it anymore. Enough, Liangzi. There's no wild man. The one who captured us was this girl. Bullshit. Gu Yundong lifted her shoes and Liangzi shouted in horror, give it to her, give it to her. His mouth was burning with pain and he began to drool as he spoke. Gu Yundong was satisfied. This person would not be obedient if she did not hit him. They each paid 5 taels of silver, but Big Qian's family did not come. Gu Yundong asked him to write an IOU. Then, he untied the rope and let them go. 5 taels of silver was not a small sum. The other villagers also saw that the 4 of them had spent a lot of money. If they wanted to offend her in the future, they would have to think twice. This was Gu Yundong's goal. She had to let them know that if they wanted to bully her family, they had to be prepared to spend money to avoid disaster. In addition, she had deliberately mentioned the county magistrate. Even if these people did not believe her, they would have some scruples. The crowd gradually dispersed. Gu Yundong was about to go back when she saw Qinliang's second daughter-in-law coming over. Yundong, my father-in-law is back and wants you to go over. Gu Yundong knew that Qinliang had gone out early in the morning. Now that he was back, he asked her to go over. Did he hear about what happened here? She nodded and went to the village chief's house. Unexpectedly, as soon as she entered, she heard Madame Fang's voice. I don't dare to let such a family stay in my place anymore. Chapter 76, Staying at my house. Gu Yundong stopped in her tracks. Madame Zhou walked over and pulled her to the side. Then, she lowered her voice and said, Yundong, you're too bold. Why didn't you shout loudly that someone had sneaked into your place? Aren't you offending them to death? Madame Zhou did not watch the commotion. She had gone to the river to wash her clothes early in the morning. At that time, she had wondered why there were so few people doing laundry today. Only when she returned did she know what had happened to Gu Yundong. She had not seen it with her own eyes, so she naturally did not know what Gu Yundong had done. You just came to Yongfu village. It's not good for you or your family to offend others like this. Gu Yundong knew that Madame Zhou was doing this for her own good. Although she did not agree with her opinion, she still smiled and said, Aunt, if I didn't do this, everyone will think that our family can be taken advantage of. Then can one still protect our newly built green brick tiled house? But, Madame Zhou was speechless. Of course, she knew that many people were guessing how much money the Gu family had behind their backs. There were many who were jealous. In fact, she had already reminded Gu Yundong from the start that she did not need to build such a good house to attract attention. It was reasonable for her not to show her wealth, but Gu Yundong felt that the comfort of living here was the most important. It was impossible to be always vigilant against thieves. Madame Zhou sighed and opened her mouth to say something, but she heard Qinliang scolding in the central room. What nonsense are you talking about? You've already accepted their rent. How can you change what you agreed on so easily? If you don't let people live now, where can the Gu family move to? Gu Yundong nodded to Madame Zhou and walked straight into the central room. In addition to Madame Fang, there was also Qingyuan and Qinliang's second son in the house. The Lu family's young master, who had come with Madame Fang and her daughter, was not around. Madame Fang was still a little afraid of Qinliang, so her voice immediately weakened. But look at what Gu Yundong has done. If she wasn't too ostentatious, how could she have provoked the thief? I don't even know if I have any less things in my house. Moreover, she offended Hu Yang today. What if he comes to take revenge another day? Qingyuan also said from the side, That's right, uncle. Mother and one are just 2 weak women. How can we be a match for a few hooligans? It's not easy for Sister Yundong and the others, but mother and one are also very innocent. That's right. Yulan is going to marry into the Wu family after the new year. One hope that there won't be any twists and turns during this period of time. What if something happens in between? What will the Wu family think of our family? Qinliang's expression was very ugly from the mother and daughter's words. You, Uncle Qin. Gu Yundong walked in. So be it. I'll move out. To be honest, she was also very uncomfortable staying at Madame Fang's house. She originally thought that she had no other choice but to stay for a month. However, from the looks of it, it was not impossible to live in the town. Uncle Feng was a trustworthy person. With him watching over the situation, he did not have to rush back to Yongfu village to look at the house every day. She could also take the opportunity to see the environment of the town and the way to earn money. It was also convenient to buy things. Moreover, she had already achieved her goal of living in the village. Those who had ill intentions no longer dared to have any designs on her family. As soon as Gu Yundong finished speaking, Qingyuan frowned. Then where are you going to stay? After what happened today, no one in the village was willing to rent it to her. Stay at my place. A voice suddenly sounded from the door. Chapter 77. Gu Yundong's decision. Everyone looked over and saw a woman standing at the door. The woman's voice was so soft that no one could hear what she said. It was Madame Dong. Dong Xiulan slowly walked in and stood beside Gu Yundong. She smiled at her. Yundong, if you don't mind, you can stay at my house. Stay at your house? Chen Liang looked at her in surprise. Because the Zeng family lived far away and the couple were quiet, their presence in the village was very low. However, Chen Liang still knew about her family's situation. The house was a little dilapidated. The man in the family had his leg smashed a few months ago and was still lying on the bed. The 3 children were still young. The family of 5 relied on Madame Dong to do some embroidery in exchange for a few copper coins. According to Feng Danning, the Gu family had hired them to cook some ginger tea for everyone to drink every day. It seemed that they were very familiar with each other. Except, before he could speak, Madame Feng said, "Your house? You have a man in your house. Madame Yang is good-looking, and Gu Yundong is at the age of marriage. If they stay at your house, won't others gossip?" These words were very unpleasant to hear, but they were also the truth. However, Chen Liang still glared at Madame Feng. Madame Feng pursed her lips and muttered softly, "For that bit of rent money, your family is really not careful." Dong Xiulan blushed at her words and couldn't help but tug at her fingers. "Village chief, we want gossip if you stay at my house. Qingyuan promised me that he would let my man and big boy stay at his house. It's also convenient. Besides, the Gu family's new house is built next to ours. It's close for her to take a look." Chen Liang was stunned. Shao Qingyuan? That kid lived alone and had 2 rooms at home. Zeng Hu and his son lived in his house, which was not far from home. The problem was not big. However, he did not expect Shao Qingyuan to agree. They had been neighbors for so many years, and the relationship between the 2 families was better than he imagined. Chen Liang thought about it and felt that this was a good idea. If his sister-in-law was unwilling, there was no point in forcing her. It was inconvenient for both families to stay. Hence, Chen Liang turned around and asked Gu Yundong, "Yundong, what do you think?" "Yundong, although my house isn't big, it's quite clean. I'm also grateful to you for taking care of our family and giving me the job of making ginger tea. If you think it's okay, you can stay at my house. When you're busy, the girl and boy at home can help take care of Yunshu and Yunka. The distance is short to the homestead." Gu Yundong hesitated. Madame Dong was right. It was very convenient to stay at her house, especially since Yunshu and Yunka were 2 children. The village chief's Go Dan had gone to school in town. This was the reason why Chen Liang was not around this morning. He had personally sent his son to his master's house. Although she also wanted to send Yunshu, she had to wait until she settled down. It would be good to have someone take her around the village during this period of time. Gu Yunka basically didn't go out much. Madame Yang and Madame Dong could talk, and she could rest assured if she went to the river to wash clothes. Yes, she actually felt that this idea was not bad. Gu Yundong was about to nod when Madame Feng sneered. "You make it sound so nice. Isn't it for money?" Dong Xiulan was a little angry. She had sincerely wanted to invite Gu Yundong over, but she had never thought about the rent. Gu Yundong ignored Madame Feng and smiled at Madame Dong. "All right, then 111 have to trouble auntie." Dong Xiulan immediately waved her hands happily. "No trouble, no trouble. Madame Fong snorted again and turned to leave. Gu Yundong finally looked at her. Wait a minute. Chapter 78, Anger You to Death. Madame Fong turned around and asked angrily, what are you doing? Since I'm no longer staying at your house, it's time to return the 200 copper coins to me. Madame Fong was unhappy. Return them? You're the one who caused trouble for our family. Those 200 copper coins aren't even enough to compensate us. Qingyuan really didn't know that Madame Fong was such an unreasonable person before today. His face darkened. Give them back. You were the one who didn't keep your promise first. You should return the money to her. Madame Fong wanted to say something, but Qingyuan tugged at her clothes. She could only say indignantly, fine, I'll return them. However, their family has been living here for a few days. It's impossible to return all 200 copper coins. At most, it's 100 copper coins. Gu Yundong smiled and said, since you want to calculate it this way, let's calculate it clearly. 200 copper coins is a month's rent. It's less than 7 copper coins a day. We've lived for 6 days, which is 40 copper coins. Return 160 copper coins. Actually, according to the normal contract, you broke the contract and refused to let us stay because of unknown dangers in the future. You should compensate us at least twice the amount. But for the sake of the village chief, forget it. I don't want to tangle with you anymore. Pay up. Madame Fang's eyes widened. What are you talking about? You want us to compensate you? That's impossible. At most, it's 100 copper coins. That's all I have. Gu Yundong smiled in a very friendly manner. Aunt Fong, did you not see the scene of Hu Liang's 4 families compensating me just now? It was really a confusing thing. Do you want me to help you recall? What's the difference between you and those hooligans? Madame Fong recalled Hu Liang's face that had been beaten into a pig's head. She immediately felt a little afraid. She could not help but hide behind Qingyuan. Uncle, look at what she's saying. She's threatening me. I'm the daughter-in-law of the Qin family. She's too much. Madame Zhou sneered. The daughter-in-law of the Qin family can't be unreasonable. Wouldn't nothing happen if sister-in-law returns the money to her? Sister-in-law, you make it sound so easy. You're not the one paying for it. Gu Yundong was impatient. Are you going to give it to me or not? She held a stick as thick as a finger in her hand. Nobody knew where it came from, but with a light snap, the sound of it was especially crisp and horrifying in the central room. Madame Fang's body trembled violently. She was not a bold person after all. She hurriedly nodded. 111 give them to you. Then let's go. Why were these people so despicable? If she didn't teach them a lesson, they would insist on struggling. Madame Fong looked at Qingyuan again. Qingyuan silently turned his head. Madame Fong could only dawdle out of the central room. When they returned home, Madame Fong asked Gu Yundong to move out quickly. Gu Yundong did not have many things. There were only 2 baskets and a big bag. She put the rest of the things in her spatial storage and tidied them up. Madame Dong followed over and helped carry a basket. When Gu Yundong and the others were about to leave, Madame Fong reluctantly took out 160 copper coins and handed them to her. Here, don't say that I took advantage of you. How unlucky. Hurry up and leave. Gu Yundong took the money and turned to Madame Dong. Auntie, take these 160 copper coins and buy some vegetables and meat. Well, cook a good meal tonight and treat it as a celebration. Madame Dong originally thought that she was going to pay the rent. She did not want to accept it. When she heard that it was to buy groceries and meat, she hurriedly said, all right, 111 buy it. Madame Fong was speechless and furious. Chapter 79, Moving. Gu Yundong led Madame Yang and the other 2 to the Zeng house. Zeng Hu and his son had already moved into Shao Qingyuan's house. There were only 7-year-old Zeng Yu and 5-year-old Zeng Lu at home. The siblings were very happy to see them. One of them helped carry the luggage, while the other ran to Gu Yenshu's side and rubbed his head innocently, calling him brother. Dong Xilan smiled and said, "All Shu is 2 months older than you. You should call him big brother." Zeng Lu exclaimed, "Why is he an older brother again? I already have an older brother. Can't I call him younger brother?" Gu Yunshu shook his head and sighed mischievously. "It's my fault for being too hardworking. I came to this world 2 months earlier than you. I'm also very helpless. Don't be too sad. There's a good saying. This is fate." Zeng Lu was extremely disappointed and could only call him brother. However, when he turned around and saw the silly and small Gu Yunka, he immediately became happy and called her crisply, "Sister. I hate my brother." Her bad brother called her fat girl again in the morning. She would complain to her eldest sister later and ask her to teach him a lesson and spank his butt. Zeng Lu, Gu Yundong was overjoyed. Indeed, children had to play with their friends. Dong Xilan was also very happy. Her family was poor and lived in a remote place. The 3 children had helped the family work since they were sensible. They rarely had any friends. Now that the Gu family was living here, it felt lively. She instructed her daughter, Zeng Yu, "Mother will go buy groceries. Take sister Yundong to her room to settle down and take care of her younger siblings. If there's anything you don't know, you can go next door to look for your brother." The eldest son of the Zeng family was called Zeng Jia. He was currently taking care of his father at Shao Qingyuan's house. Zeng Yu agreed, and Dong Xilan left the house with the basket. Gu Yundong looked at the Zeng family. They seemed to have cleaned up the house better than when she came yesterday. It was only when she entered the room that she suddenly came back to her senses. The Zeng family seemed to have known that she was leaving Madame Fang's house and looking for a new place to stay. Otherwise, why would the Zeng father and son move so quickly? They had already tidied up the place beforehand. She turned around and asked Zeng Yu. The little girl blushed and replied shyly, "I don't know either." Before mother left, she said a few words. She didn't say anything else. After thinking for a while, she added, "But mother spoke to brother Shao before." Father was also carried over by brother Shao. Shao Qingyuan. Gu Yundong thought of the 4 sacks that had been thrown into the courtyard last night. It should have been Shao Qingyuan who had done it. Could it be that he had guessed that the Fang family would not let them stay, so he had asked the Dong family to invite them? For some reason, Gu Yundong felt his face heat up. It was not that she was thinking too much. Shao Qingyuan had helped her more than once. Not to mention the incident with the wild boar, just 2 days ago, he had knocked out 4 thieves who had entered her courtyard and dragged them away. Now, he had taken the initiative to help her solve the accommodation problem. Although Gu Yundong did not believe that Shao Qingyuan was a heartless person, she would definitely not treat him as a benevolent person who helped others for nothing. This person wouldn't have any feelings for her, right? Perhaps she had to find an opportunity to ask. Madame Dong quickly bought groceries back, mainly meat. There were vegetables in the garden, so there was no need to spend so much effort. She directly handed it to Gu Yundong. The meat and fish cost 60 copper coins. The rest of the money is here. There's firewood in the kitchen, and the water vat is full. You can use it directly. If you need anything, feel free to order Yuer around. I'll go to Qingyuan's house to brew medicine for my husband. I'll leave first. When Gu Yundong heard this, she knew that Madame Dong did not intend to take advantage of her family. She did not take her words to heart and even deliberately avoided them. She did not say anything. After Madame Dong left, she prepared more food before starting to cook Gu Yung's favorite braised pork. Chapter 80, 60 feet high room. Gu Yundong was not a petty person. If others were friendly to her, she would naturally be generous. But if it was someone like Madame Fang, she did not even want to give her a single grain of salt. Gu Yunk's eyes lit up as she looked at her elder sister's braised pork. As she swallowed, she said to Zeng Yu, "The braised pork is delicious. It's oily, fragrant, and soft. Take a bite." "Wow, it'll jump. You'll swallow it with a gulp." Zeng Yu tried her best not to look at the meat, but she could not close her ears. When she heard the little girl's yearning expression, she could not help but salivate. Hence, after a pause, she let go of Gu Yunk's hand and said, "I'll go outside to water the vegetables." With that, she ran away. The little girl looked at her fleeing back in confusion. "Wait, haven't you watered them?" Gu Yundong glanced at her with a smile. "You, go and sit at the side. Be careful that the oil spills and you'll scream in pain again." "No, I won't. That's my brother." The little girl threw the blame on Gu Yunshu without hesitation. She explained with a serious expression, but she still turned around to look for Zeng Yu. Gu Yundong quickly cooked the braised pork. She took the fish to make soup. Thinking that the young lady liked boiled eggs, she cracked a few more eggs. There were a lot of vegetables in the backyard of the Zeng family. Gu Yundong asked Zeng Yu to pick some beans, a few potatoes and eggplants, and a cabbage. The eggplants were roasted with beans, and sour and spicy shredded potatoes, and she made cabbage noodles. She had cooked a lot, so almost 6 dishes were enough. When they were all served, Gu Yundong took off his apron and asked Zeng Yu, who was in the courtyard with Gu Yunka, to come over. Zeng Yu had long smelled the fragrance coming from the kitchen. She had never smelled it before. She didn't even need to look to know that it was delicious. "You, bring these dishes next door and let your father and the others eat. Also, call your mother back for dinner." Zeng Hu's leg was injured, so he could not be carried back and forth over a meal. Thus, Gu Yundong had already divided 2 portions of food. Zeng Yu was stunned. After a moment, she hurriedly shook her head. No. This is your food. We have food. I'm moving today. Shouldn't we celebrate? Aren't you willing to celebrate with us?" Gu Yundong interrupted her. Zeng Yu hurriedly shook her head again. Yes. Then bring it over." Zeng Yu was no match for her. It was not right to say that she did not want to eat it, and it was even more wrong to eat it. After some thought, she turned around and ran away to ask her mother. Gu Yundong sighed. She was in a difficult position because she liked to take advantage of others. She was also in a difficult position because she was unwilling to take advantage of others. Life was so difficult. She simply went out to call Gu Yunshu. This kid and Zeng Lu were watching people build houses at the edge of the homestead. At the same time, she introduced Zeng Lu to where his room was. Even if he was spouting nonsense, and his finger was pointing at a wrong place, Zeng Lu nodded repeatedly, indicating that this little brother who was 2 months older than him was amazing. When Gu Yundong went to call him, Gu Yunshu was still unsatisfied and was saying that his room was 60 feet tall. Gu Yundong staggered and almost fell to the ground. 60 feet was 20 meters. How could you be so capable? The room was so high. Did you want to go to the sky? She slapped him on the side of the head and told him to get to work. Gu Yunshu carried the dishes to Shao Qingyuan's house next door. As soon as he left, there was a knock on the door. Chapter 81. Don't call him Wolf Cub. Gu Yundong was stunned. The moment she opened the door, a small figure rushed in like a cannonball. Yunshu, I'm here." Gu Yundong took a closer look. Wasn't this Chen Liang's grandson? Niu Dan ran in but did not see anyone. He turned around and ran back. "Sister Yundong, where's Yunshu?" "He went next door." "Then I'll go find him." After saying that, Niu Dan ran away. He took a step out of the door and hurriedly stopped. As if he had thought of something, he slowly turned his head and looked at her. He asked carefully, "Next door? Is it that wolf cub's house?" Gu Yundong felt that education had to start from a child, especially since this child was close to her younger brother, so she corrected him. His name is Shao Qingyuan, not Wolf Cub. Niu Dan, you can call him Brother Shao or Shao Qingyuan. But, everyone called him that. Call him Brother Shao. Niu Dan immediately changed his words. Then he'll call you Brother Shao too. Good boy. Then, is that Brother Shao's house next door? 1-to-1 don't dare to go, Niu Dan said aggrievedly. Gu Yundong shrugged. Ah, Shu will be back soon. Then he'll wait for him at home. Niu Dan returned and walked towards the kitchen. He had smelled it just now. The kitchen smelled so fragrant. He wondered what it was. Unexpectedly, as soon as he walked into the kitchen, he saw a small figure leaning on the table with a spoon. She was staring at the plate of meat in the middle, her little nose twitching as she tried to smell it. Niu Dan also sniffed hard twice. When they saw the dishes on the table, they almost drooled. He quickly walked over and asked Gu Yunke, if you want to eat, why don't you do it? Gu Yunke did not even turn around. Eldest sister said that before everyone is here, we can't eat yet. Otherwise, she'll slap my hand. I'll smell the food first. Oh. Niu Dan climbed onto the stool and stared at the dishes in front of him. As he watched, he could not help but lean on the table and sniffle with Gu Yunke. When Gu Yunshu returned from delivering the vegetables, he heard from his eldest sister that Niu Dan had come to look for him in the kitchen. He quickly brought Zeng Lu in. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered, he saw two little heads lying on the edge of the table, taking deep breaths with an intoxicated expression. Gu Yunshu's lips twitched as he walked to Niu Dan's side. Niu Dan, why are you looking for me? Niu Dan did not answer. It smelled so good. Compared to this, it felt like the meat his mother made was grass. Gu Yunshu simply pulled him off the stool. Niu Dan, why are you looking for me? I want to eat braised pork, Niu Dan replied subconsciously. Gu Yunshu exclaimed, huh? Niu Dan suddenly reacted. He wiped the saliva that almost flowed out and hurriedly said, I came to tell you that I was praised by Sir today. What for? Niu Dan chuckled. I know all the words that Sir taught me today. It's the ones you taught me 2 days ago. Sir said that I was especially smart and talented. Hee, so when one came back, I didn't even go home. One came straight to look for you. Actually, Chen Liang also knew how to read. He had taught him before sending Niu Dan to school, but Niu Dan could not remember anything. If he learned something today, he would forget it tomorrow. It was not until he played with Gu Yunshu 2 days ago and talked about school that he learned a few words. Needless to say, the two children really learned. Gu Yunshu was also very happy. Then study hard. Don't let Sir down. Yes. Then shouldn't we eat braised pork to celebrate such a happy day today? Gu Yunshu. Chapter 82, What a tragic Mandong Shilan and her daughter returned later. They were also quite helpless. They did not expect Gu Yunshu to be so good at talking. Big sister was rarely happy today. If they did not eat, it would ruin Big sister's good mood. Big sister had said that if he did not complete the mission and call them back, he would not come back to eat. Coupled with Shao Qingyuan's persuasion, Dong Shilan could not be pretentious anymore. Moreover, although she was next door previously, the fragrance coming from the kitchen was really too alluring. The mother and daughter were quite embarrassed, especially when Gu Yundong asked her younger brother to bring food to the husband. The food looked better than the restaurants in town. They had never tried it before. Niu Dan was also very happy. He had been praised by Master and could eat delicious food when he came back. He was simply too happy. After the meal, Madame Dong rushed to clean up the dishes, and Gu Yundong let her be. When the sky turned completely dark, Shao Qingyuan came over with the washed dishes. Gu Yundong was pouring water in the kitchen and preparing to wash his face. She was alone, so when he came in, the two of them bumped into each other. Upon seeing him, Yundong immediately thought of the previous problem. Although he felt a little uncomfortable, when she saw that he had put down his bowl and chopsticks and was about to leave, she still asked, "Were you the one who suggested to Aunt Zeng and asked her to go to the village chief's house to let our family stay?" Shao Qingyuan had always felt that one had to leave their name behind when doing a good deed. Otherwise, he would not have done it so obviously. Hence, he nodded. Yes. Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly and looked at him steadily. Previously, you helped me catch those 4 thieves and even packed them up and sent them to the courtyard. Shao Qingyuan, why are you helping me so much? Shao Qingyuan was surprisingly sharp at this moment. He could even guess from her subtle expression what kind of treatment he would receive after answering. Therefore, he swallowed his original answer, which circled around the tip of his tongue. He said expressionlessly, "The egg fried rice was very delicious." What do you mean? Shao Qingyuan explained, "One caught those 4 people to thank you for your meal. I let you stay in the Zeng family's house because it's convenient for me to eat." Yundong's eyes widened. Was he doing this for food? Shao Qingyuan nodded at her and left steadily. Just as he left, Dong Xiulan happened to come over. She looked at his back in surprise and asked suspiciously, "Did Qingyuan say something to you?" She came over because she heard voices in the kitchen. He thanked me for the food one brought over. It was delicious. When Dong Xiulan heard that, she sighed slightly. Actually, Qingyuan is also a pitiful child. He hasn't eaten good food since he was young. In the past, when he was in the Li family, that family didn't treat him as one of their own at all. Later, he moved out with old man Li and lived a hard life. Isn't he making money now? Yes, he can earn money, but Qingyuan doesn't know how to cook. Last time, he tried to cook porridge, but the kitchen was half burned. Later, his kitchen was deserted. One asked him to come to my house to eat, but he didn't come. He only came once every 10 times I called him. Actually, even if he came, my culinary skills can't even compare to half of yours. He goes to town every 2 to 3 days and buys a large bag of steamed buns and pancakes. He can eat them for 3 to 5 days before buying them again. Yundong was stunned. She recalled the last time she saw him nibbling on a dry steamed bun. Her expression became exceptionally complicated. What a pitiful man. Chapter 83:1 will definitely find father. After listening to Shao Qingyuan's explanation, Yundong felt a little ashamed of her wild guesses. Sigh, he had suffered for so many years. He just wanted to eat something delicious. Look at how dirty she thought of him. It was not a big deal to cook another person's food. After all, he had helped her so much just to satisfy her appetite. Yundong despised herself as he returned to his room. As soon as the door was closed, Shao Qingyuan went up the wall and sat on the wall next door, looking in her direction. He had been too hasty. She was more vigilant than he had imagined. She must have encountered a lot of things on the way to escape. Now, she did not trust people very much, especially people who did not ask for anything in return. She was exceptionally vigilant. He had clearly heard her forbid Niu Dan from calling him a wolf cub. Shao Qingyuan frowned and jumped down from the wall. Yundong, on the other hand, slept much more comfortably after changing the environment. Dong Xiulan had tidied up their room very well. She did not deliberately teach them a lesson like Madame Fong and her daughter. It gave off a very warm feeling. However, in the middle of the night, she was woken up by a low cry. Yundong suddenly opened his eyes and looked around. He realized that it was his mother, Madame Yang, who was crying. She was stunned for a moment before she quickly went to Madame Yang's side and called her softly, "Mother, mother, are you feeling unwell?" Due to her intelligence, Madame Yang's emotions did not fluctuate much. Unless she was hurt, she would not cry. Yundong called her for a long time, but Madame Yang seemed to be possessed. She refused to wake up no matter what. There were even 2 streaks of tears at the corners of her eyes. Yundong was afraid that something was wrong with her head. She raised her voice and pinched her nose. "Mother, wake up." "Mother?" Yunshu was woken up. He rubbed his eyes and immediately woke up when he saw the situation. "Big sister, what's wrong?" Yundong could not be bothered to answer his question. He pinched her nose and Madame Yang finally woke up. She looked at Yundong in a daze and suddenly hugged her. "Dajiang, Dajiang, Wu, Dajiang." "Gu Dajiang." Yundong did not expect her mother to dream of Gu Dajiang and cry so miserably. She thought that her mother's intelligence was only at the age of 4 or 5 and that she would no longer understand the relationship between a man and a woman. But now, it seemed that she had taken it for granted. Yundong allowed her mother to hug her. She patted her back and comforted her softly. "It's all right, it's all right. You had a nightmare. You'll be fine when you wake up." Madame Yang was crying uncontrollably. However, she was not wailing. Instead, she seemed to be trying her best to suppress her cries. However, this made other people's hearts ache even more. Yunshu, who was at the side, was quickly moved. He also wiped the corners of his eyes with his hand. "Eldest sister, mother dreamed of father. Is it because something happened to father and mother cried?" "Eldest sister, I don't want father to encounter anything. One miss father. Can we still see father in the future?" Yundong pursed his lips. After a moment, he said firmly, "We will see him. Tomorrow, one will ask someone to find out. If there's no news, one will personally go to Qingyuan prefecture to look for him after the house is built." Yundong wanted to see her father dead or alive. Although it was hard to predict whether he would live or die on the way to escape, Yundong was still unwilling to give up if she did not work hard. The next day, Yundong planned to make a trip to the county. However, as soon as she went out, she saw Feng Danning looking at her with a guilty expression. "Yundong, Uncle Feng has let you down." Chapter 84. A word. Yundong raised his eyes and looked behind Feng Danning. The people who came to work at her homestead were already busy at this time in the past, but now, they had stopped and were looking over worriedly. "What happened?" Yundong's expression turned grave. Feng Danning lowered his head slightly and wiped his rough face. His hands were trembling. "Yesterday, my senior brother came to look for me and saw the blueprints you gave me at my house. I didn't expect him to secretly roll them up and take them away. He even gave them to the Peng family in the county." "You know the Peng family, right?" Yundong shook her head. She had just arrived. Not to mention the Peng family in the county, even more than half of the people in the village were strangers to her. Feng Danning explained the situation of the Peng family to her. The Peng family was the local tyrant of Fengkai County. They were a big family in the county. Their ancestors had been in the cloth business since the beginning. In the entire Fengkai County, all the cloth shops that were worth mentioning belonged to his family. Even those scattered small shops more or less had some business dealings with the Peng family. Most importantly, the Peng family had an uncle who became an official in the capital. This caused the Peng family's status in Fengkai County to rise even more. Even the Peng family's disciples could do whatever they wanted. The senior brother that Feng Danning mentioned was the second young master of the Peng family, Peng Zhongfei. Actually, even though he was his senior brother, it was only during the 2 years that Feng Danning was in the prefecture capital. They were brought up by the same foreman, and they did not have much friendship. Moreover, his senior brother Chang Fu boasted that he was from the county and did not think much of Feng Danning. After the prefectural city, there was too little contact between them. Unless he needed his help, he would never be enthusiastic. Yesterday, he had come over early in the morning to borrow money from Feng Danning. However, after Feng Danning accepted the Gu family's job, he was full of energy. Every day, before dawn, he would go to the homestead to take a look and think about how to make it perfect. As for his wife, Lu Hohot, she was watching Gu Yundong deal with the 4 thieves at the entrance of the Fong family's house while munching on melon seeds. Therefore, when Chang Fu came over, only his 8-year-old son was guarding the door. His son knew Chang Fu. After letting Chang Fu in to drink water, he ran to the homestead to call Fong Danning back. In the countryside, this was how the uncles were treated. Unexpectedly, when he went to call his father, Chang Fu looked around and saw that the door of the main house was only ajar. He immediately pushed open the door and entered. Then, he saw a small wooden box covered with a cloth on the bedside table. The wooden box was wiped clean. It was obvious that there was something valuable inside. Chang Fu did not think of stealing money at first, but when he saw the blueprint inside, his eyes lit up. Without a word, he folded it and hid it in his clothes. In order not to arouse Fong Danning's suspicion, he sat calmly in the central room and drank water while waiting for Fong Danning to return. He chatted with him for a while before leaving. Fong Danning was already impatient and couldn't wait for him to leave quickly. Then, he would go to the homestead to look at the progress of the house. Therefore, when he realized that the blueprint was gone, it was already night time. At that time, his face was pale. He rushed to the county city overnight, but when he arrived, the city gate was closed. When the city gate opened in the morning, he immediately ran to Chang Fu's house. However, it was already too late. Chang Fu gave the blueprint to Peng Zhongfei. Fong Danning's heart turned cold, but that was not all. Peng Zhongfei even asked Chang Fu to bring a message. Chapter 85, Not Allowed. What did he say? Gu Yundong's brows knitted tightly. Fong Danning felt especially sorry for her. He could not even raise his head in front of her. The Peng family said that this blueprint belongs to their family and we stole it. That's why no one is allowed to build the house on the blueprint. If anyone dares to build it, they will get someone to destroy the house. Gu Yundong snorted. This was really domineering. The house she wanted to build was not only stolen by others, but she was also not allowed to build it. How shameless and capable was he? Why didn't he go to heaven? Fong Danning felt very guilty, but his arm could not win against this thigh. This was not the first time the Peng family had done such a thing. In the eyes of such a rich and powerful family, it was not strange for them to take the fruits of other people's labor for themselves. The commoners had no connections or backing. They did not care at all. Not to mention a few small blueprints that she had drawn, even if there were some secret recipes passed down from ancestors, it was not uncommon for them to be snatched away by others. So what if she went to the authorities? Let's not talk about whether she dared or not. Even if she did, it was uncertain if the authorities would stand on his side. She would be retaliated against. Yundong, it's Uncle Feng's fault. Fong Danning regretted not putting a lock on the box so that Chang Fu wouldn't steal it. But the Peng family isn't to be trifled with. You still have your mother and young sister-in-law in your family. If you anger them, they won't have a good life. Why don't we build a tile house that's similar to the village chief's house? Uncle Feng will definitely do his best and won't ask you for a single coin. This time, Uncle Feng owes you. If you need Uncle Feng's help in the future, one definitely won't refuse. Although Gu Yundong also felt that Fong Danning was too careless, the culprits were Chang Fu and Peng Zhongfei. In fact, her blueprint was not very valuable, but it was especially novel. Perhaps the interior of the house had been modernized, but seriously speaking, it was not her original design. If the Peng family wanted to build such a house, they could. She would not stop them, and she did not care if it was exactly the same as hers. But what right did he have to steal her blueprint and not let her build the house? Did he think he was the king? Gu Yundong sneered. I'm definitely going to build it. Uncle Feng, get everyone to continue working. Just follow the original blueprint. Fong Danning was surprised. Yundong, I'll personally take back my own things. Her things had been stolen. Did she have to swallow her anger? There was no such logic. Feng Danning was extremely worried. Yundong, the Peng family might not even get punished by the county magistrate. When he went home yesterday, he heard Lu Hohat talk about the 4 thieves and suspected that Yundong might know the county magistrate. Hence, she thought that Gu Yundong dared to be so unyielding because of the county magistrate's power. I know, Gu Yundong said, but she still did not change her decision. Once the county magistrate's term of office was over, he would leave immediately. The local tyrants were different. No one was willing to offend them. I'll go to the county now. Gu Yundong returned to the house. When he came out again, he was carrying a small bag. No one knew what was inside. Seeing that Feng Danning was still standing there, she urged him, go and get everyone to continue working. Feng Danning pursed his lips and his eyes gradually became firm. One was negligent in this matter. 1111 go with you. Gu Yundong looked at him in surprise. After some thought, she nodded and said, let's go. After saying that, she took the lead and walked forward. Feng Danning hurriedly followed. However, they had not walked far when a person sneakily poked out from the pile of firewood behind the house. Not to mention the county magistrate, even if the magistrate's relatives wanted to settle down, they had to follow the rules at this juncture. However, Jin Yuexiang's words still caused a commotion in the village. Everyone gathered together and whispered to each other. They found it unbelievable that Gu Yundong would dare to go to the Peng family to cause trouble. The Gu family is probably really done for this time. That house won't be built either. What a pity. One heard that it's built beautifully. I still want to take a look after the beam is up. There were also people who made sarcastic remarks. Serves her right. Look at how arrogant she was yesterday. She's so shrewish and vicious at such a young age. She's already difficult to marry. Now that she's offended the Peng family, who would dare to interact with them? When Jin Yuexiang heard this, she was very pleased. She ran around the entire village before returning home and telling her son the news in high spirits. Hu Liang's face was still bruised and swollen. When he heard this, his eyes lit up. He was originally lying on the bed listlessly, but he instantly jumped up, put on his clothes, and rushed out the door. Jin Yuexiang hurriedly called out to him, where are you going? Ha 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 ha, I'm going to take revenge. Chapter 87, Shao Qingyuan rushes to the county city. Hu Liang went to look for his scoundrel friends, but he did not go to Zhuangzi's house in the same village. Instead, he went to Gaoxing's house in the neighboring village. Gaoxing was also recuperating at home. Although his face was not swollen, he had been beaten up by Shao Qingyuan a few times the day before. It was very painful. When Hu Liang came over, he was sitting in the courtyard, looking at the sky in confusion. Gaoxing, follow me. One didn't expect our chance to take revenge to come so quickly. What revenge? That wretched girl from the Gu family has offended the Peng family. The Peng family doesn't allow her to build a house. They said that they want to destroy it. If we go and destroy it now, we can even go to the Peng family to take credit and get some money. He repeated what Jin Yuexiang had heard. Gaoxing was stunned for a moment before Hu Liang pulled him up from the stool. Hurry up, let's call Big Qian. The 3 of us will go together. Big Qian is not at home. He went to find work, Gaoxing said. He and his grandmother were the only ones in Big Qian's family. They relied on each other. His grandmother was old, so he could only think of a way to pay Gu Yundong the 5 taels of silver. Hu Liang frowned. Then let's go together. Gaoxing was a little confused. Why don't you look for Zhuangzi? Bah, don't mention that bastard to me. It's fine if he didn't help me yesterday, but he actually advised me not to find trouble with that brat. What's the difference between him and his cowardly parents? One won't bring him around in the future. Let's go, let's hurry. Just as Hu Liang was about to pull him away, Gao Xing's father, Zhao Zhu, returned. He looked very burly, and Hu Liang was actually a little afraid of him. Zhao Zhu looked at Gao Xing. Where are you going now? You're recuperating at home. Hu Liang pursed his lips. He was disdainful in his heart. What's the point of putting on airs as a father? Gao Xing won't listen to you. However, just as he thought this, Gao Xing lowered his head and agreed. Got it, father. I'm not going out. Hu Liang's eyes widened in disbelief. Gao Xing was also possessed? Gao Xing's hatred with his father was as deep as the sea. Back then, Gao Xing's mother was gone, and his father had married a stepmother. It was easy for a stepmother to cripple a child who was only a few years old. However, Zhao Zhu was not good with words. He adhered to the principle of filial piety. It was fine if the two of them did not communicate. The stepmother even sowed discord, making Gao Xing think that her biological mother had been killed by his father. By the time Zhao Zhu found out about this, the relationship between father and son could no longer be eased. Therefore, even if that stepmother was divorced, Gao Xing still treated his father as an enemy and did not return home often. Today, when his father ordered him with a straight face, he actually did not go against his father. Not only that, but he also advised Hu Liang, these are just rumors. It's fine if you just listen to them. That little girl from the Gu family is amazing. You shouldn't get involved. Hu Liang flung his hand away angrily. You're also a coward. Alright, if you don't want to go, 111 go. He shook his head and left. He returned to the village and went to Gu Yundong's homestead. However, when he saw that there were so many laborers working at the homestead, he immediately cowered. After walking around the homestead, Hu Liang did not find a chance to attack. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. Yes, he could look for young Master Peng. He happened to know a servant of the Peng family. When the time came, he would tell young Master Peng that not only did Gu Yundong not stop building the house, but she also threatened to teach the Peng family a lesson. She even said that she had the county magistrate as her backer. He was the best at adding fuel to the fire. He guaranteed that young Master Peng would kill Gu Yundong in a fit of anger. He couldn't do it, but he could use someone else to do it. Perhaps young Master Peng would reward him with a few taels of silver when he was happy. It was killing two birds with one stone. Thinking of this, Hu Liang became excited. He turned around and walked towards the village entrance. However, just as he reached the entrance of the village, they suddenly saw a person in front of them rushing towards the county. Wasn't that a wolf cub? Chapter 88, Do you remember me? Hu Liang was a little afraid of Shao Qingyuan. It should be said that in the entire Yongfu village, there was no youth their age who was not afraid of him. Therefore, he immediately stopped and ran to hide behind a big tree at the entrance of the village. He was anxious, but he still had to wait for this guy to pass first. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan walked quickly and disappeared in a short while. Hu Liang heaved a sigh of relief and rushed to the county city. However, there was Shao Qingyuan in front of him. He did not walk as fast as before. Shao Qingyuan did not notice him. He was also anxious. This morning, he woke up and went straight into the mountains. In order to confirm what he had said last night, he specially went to catch 2 pheasants. One was for the Gu family, and the other was for food. He asked Gu Yundong to help make a good meal. Unexpectedly, when he went down the mountain, he heard everyone in the village discussing the girl and the Peng family. He couldn't hear clearly, so he rushed home. When he ran next door, he saw Gu Yunshu comforting Madame Dong, who was running around in circles, not knowing what to do. Gu Yundong had a mysterious confidence in Gu Yundong. If his eldest sister said that nothing would happen, he would believe her. Then, he would obediently guard his mother and younger sister. On the other hand, when Feng Danning came to look for Gu Yundong, she was standing not far behind. The cause and effect could not be clearer. When she saw Shao Qingyuan coming over, he did not care that Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong were not familiar with each other. She subconsciously asked for his opinion. Only then did Shao Qingyuan know what had happened. He handed the 2 pheasants to Madame Dong and left in a hurry. Now, his mind was racing. He was thinking about how he could get back what belonged to Gu Yundong at the smallest price and teach Peng Zhongfei a lesson. He had never thought of letting Gu Yundong bear with this matter. Shao Qingyuan was not such a person. Therefore, he did not notice that Hu Liang was hiding behind the tree behind him. Shao Qingyuan walked faster and faster. In the end, he ran. However, after running for a short distance, a carriage came. Shao Qingyuan looked straight ahead and walked past it. However, the curtain of the carriage was lifted, and a lazy head popped out. The moment he saw Shao Qingyuan, the head immediately perked up. He hurriedly said to the coachman in front, "Stop, stop, stop." "Hey!" The carriage stopped dangerously. The person in the carriage poked half of his head out and called out to him, "Hey, hey, wait a minute. It's me. Do you remember me?" Shao Qingyuan turned a deaf ear. The person in the carriage quickly instructed the driver, "Turn around and chase after him." The carriage made a turn and ran quickly. Soon, it was parallel to Shao Qingyuan. Shao Qingyuan frowned and looked at him. He looked a little familiar. Oh, it was the young master of the Lu family, Lu Wei. This person had even rebuked Gu Yundong at Madame Fang's door yesterday, saying that it was impossible for the county magistrate to know her. Yes, his brain was flooded with water. There was no need to pay attention to him. Shao Qingyuan turned around and was about to leave. However, just as he lifted his foot, his eyes narrowed. His carriage, Lu Wei leaned out even more. If not for the servant holding him in the carriage, he would have fallen out. "Your name is Shao Qingyuan, right? Do you still remember me? One specially came to Yongfu village to look for you." Shao Qingyuan suddenly turned around and jumped into the carriage. Lu Wei was stunned for a moment before he smiled. "That's right. It's easier to talk when you're in the carriage. I was so tired just now." Chapter 89. Bring me, Shao Qingyuan said to the coachman, "To the county city." "Why are you going to the county city?" "To your Yongfu village. I came to look for you because I wanted you to bring me into the mountains to hunt. I'll give you 100 taels of silver. How about you bring me to hunt a roe deer?" Lu Wei was in high spirits and wanted to ask the coachman to turn around. However, Shao Qingyuan looked at him steadily and repeated, "To the county city." He had to listen to him if he had a favor to ask. Otherwise, he would kick him down and snatch the carriage. Lu Wei shivered under his gaze and laughed dryly. "I'll listen to you. One can see that you have something urgent to do in the county city. I'm a helpful person, so I'll send you there. But let's agree that when you're done, you'll bring me to hunt roe deer. I came to your village yesterday. I wanted to look for you, but I had something to do and returned home." Lu Wei knew Shao Qingyuan because he had bought Shao Qingyuan's wild boar last time. This person was generous and gave him 50 taels of silver. The wild boar was a big fellow. At that time, Lu Wei admired Shao Qingyuan very much. However, after he received the silver, he left when he was not paying attention. He did not even have the time to ask for the guy's address and name. This time, he wanted to catch a roe deer and give it to someone. It was very useful. At that time, he immediately thought of Shao Qingyuan, but there was no way to contact him. Just as he was wondering if he should get another hunter to bring him into the mountain, he bumped into Qingyuan. Madame Fang and Qingyuan went to her nephew's wedding banquet. His nephew's wife happened to be Lu Wei's mother's second-class maidservant. She had been released when she was old and had taken a fancy to the nephew. The day after the maidservant got married, she came to the Lu family to kowtow to his mother. It could be considered a closure for the master and servant relationship. Perhaps it was also to tell the Fong family that she had been doted on and had a backer in the main family. She was not a daughter-in-law who could be bullied casually. At that time, Qingyuan wanted to come along and say that she wanted to see the world. She kept praising her. Coupled with the encouragement of the elders at the side, the maidservant had no choice but to bring Qingyuan to the Lu family. Lu Wei was talking to his mother at that time and happened to be talking about the wild boar he had bought 2 days ago. Qingyuan heard that it was a wild boar. She remembered that before she went to her grandmother's house with her mother, she heard that the wolf cub in the village had caught a wild boar and was sending it to the county city for selling. Unfortunately, she and her mother were in a hurry and did not have the time to look. Now that he heard Lu Wei's words, wasn't Shao Qingyuan the one who matched the time, appearance, and age? Qingyuan was extremely excited at that time. She found an opportunity to tell Lu Wei shyly that the hunter was from her village. When Lu Wei heard this, he immediately asked her to lead the way to her village to find Shao Qingyuan. That was why Yundong had seen Lu Wei and Madame Fong standing together. However, just after Lu Wei arrived at Yongfu village and watched a show yesterday, before he could find Shao Qingyuan, a servant came looking for him. He said that there was an urgent matter at home and asked him to hurry back. Lu Wei could only regretfully say that he would come another day. Unexpectedly, he met Shao Qingyuan on the way. That was great. This way, he would have a roe deer. Lu Wei felt that Shao Qingyuan was capable. He knew that Shao Qingyuan had sold more than one wild boar. When Lu Wei thought about this, he felt quite happy. Even the heavens were helping him. He confirmed again, when you're done with the matters in the county, you can bring me into the mountains, right? I have to go personally. You will bring me, right? Shao Qingyuan frowned. This person was too annoying. However, he suddenly thought of something. He turned his head and asked him, do you know Peng Zhongfei? Chapter 90, Poison My Lisu. Lu Wei was stunned. Peng Zhongfei? Of course he knew him. He patted Shao Qingyuan's shoulder and laughed. Yes, we know each other. We even drank together 2 days ago. They had even visited a brothel after that, but he could not say that. All right, bring me into the Peng house. The smile on Lu Wei's face instantly froze. He removed his hand from his shoulder and asked dryly, you went to the county city just for the Peng family? Do you have a feud with that Peng Zhongfei? No. Lu Wei heaved a sigh of relief. Then why are you going to the Peng family? If you bring me in, not only will I bring you into the mountains to hunt roe deer, but I'll also bring a tiger, Shao Qingyuan said. He paused for a moment and added, don't worry, I won't kill anyone or set fire. I won't implicate you. Lu Wei's eyes lit up when he heard about the tiger. He was very tempted. Besides, his relationship with Peng Zhongfei was only average. Everyone had bad friends. Moreover, he was only bringing this guy in. If something really happened, he could just deny it. The Peng family really didn't dare to do anything to him. The Lu family was just keeping a low profile. It wasn't like they didn't have a backer. The commoners didn't know, but how could he not know? The Peng family's official in the capital was only a 5th grade official. In the capital, he had to tuck his tail between his legs. Moreover, with the roe deer and the tiger, he might have another backer after giving them away. Lu Wei thought for a while and nodded. Okay. His servant quickly pulled him. Young master, if something happens later, do you want to be beaten to death by the old master? The old master said not to cause trouble during this period of time. Lu Wei glared at him and looked at Shao Qingyuan with a smile. Then it's settled. You have to bring me along when you beat the tiger. The servant's face turned pale. Young master, you've been a little arrogant recently. Shao Qingyuan only nodded. He did not say anything else. In any case, he would let this guy stay on the tree when they entered the mountain, so that he wouldn't get in the way. Lu Wei happily instructed the coachman to speed up. He saw that Shao Qingyuan seemed to be in a hurry. Shao Qingyuan did not speak along the way. He ignored Lu Wei's desire to talk and lifted the curtain to look at the road ahead. He had thought that Gu Yundong and Feng Danning were slow because they were walking, and that he would be able to catch up in the carriage. Unexpectedly, they did not see the two of them even when they reached the entrance of the county. Shao Qingyuan frowned. Could it be that they had already gone to the Peng family? He quickly asked Lu Wei to bring him in. Gu Yundong did not go to the Peng family. Since Shao Qingyuan could find a carriage, she would not let herself suffer. On the way, she encountered a mule cart. After saying a few words, she got someone to take them all the way to the county, the Chang family. Feng Danning knocked on the door. Chang Fu's wife, Madame Wang, opened the door. When she saw them, she immediately wanted to close the door, but Gu Yundong pushed it open. Madame Wang was about to shout when Gu Yundong sneered and raised his voice. "Where's that thief Chang Fu?" Madame Wang felt guilty and subconsciously rushed out to take a look. As expected, she saw someone sticking his head out from next door. She immediately closed the door without a word and came back to her senses. "Who are you? Why are you shouting at my house?" Gu Yundong ignored her and went straight in. She saw Chang Fu happily drinking wine and eating some side dishes. Yesterday, young Master Peng had rewarded him with 20 taels of silver. Gu Yundong pulled her up. Chang Fu frowned and glared at her. "What are you doing? Where did this wild girl come from?" Before he could finish speaking, Gu Yundong threw something into his mouth and closed it forcefully. "Swallow it." Chang Fu swallowed it and widened his eyes. What did you feed me?" "My Lisu." Chapter 91, Drag into the room. What? What's my Lisu? Chang Fu had a very bad feeling. It was just a kind of snack. Gu Yundong smiled slightly. "Oh, it's a kind of poison. If you don't take the antidote in about 4 hours, your entire body will spasm. Your face will twitch, your eyes will be crooked, your mouth will be slanted, and all your hair will fall off. Then, you will die laughing." When Madame Wang heard this, her face immediately turned pale. She pounced on her and wanted to hit her, but she was stopped by Feng Danning. "You be *tch, you're so evil at such a young age. I'll beat you to death and sell you to," Gu Yundong snorted. "Continue cursing. If you want Chang Fu to die from poisoning, 111 fulfill your wish. You're lying to me. If you dare to kill someone in broad daylight, you won't be able to escape either." Chang Fu didn't believe it. He had never heard of it. However, he still subconsciously dug his throat and tried his best to spit out the Lisu that he had swallowed. However, he could not spit it out. He immediately flared up at Madame Wang. "You stupid woman, why aren't you pouring me water?" Madame Wang could not care less. She went to the kitchen and scooped a large ladle of water for Chang Fu to drink. Gu Yundong stood at the side and watched coldly, allowing them to do whatever they wanted. When they could no longer do anything, she looked at the two people with tears in their eyes. "If you don't believe me, then wait for 4 hours. I don't care." "Oh, right, if you don't believe me, you can go to the doctor to see if you really don't have long to live." "Well, go back to the village first." After saying that, she turned around and left. Feng Danning did not understand her goal and quickly followed. Chang Fu quickly shouted, wait a minute." He covered his throat and staggered to her. He widened his eyes and asked, What exactly do you want?" If what she said was true, he would have to spend 4 hours to go to Yongfu village to ask her for the antidote. At that time, he would be dead. Gu Yundong knew that he was suspicious and afraid of death. He immediately raised his eyebrows and said, "Simple. Want you to take me to the Peng residence to look for Peng Zhongfei." Chang Fu shook his head like a rattle drum. "Impossible. If one bring you there, young Master Peng will beat me to death. Then it's not negotiable. Goodbye." Wait, Chang Fu said fiercely. 111 Think about it. Alright, take your time to think about it. You should know that I'm going to the Peng residence to get my things back. In short, I won't give you the antidote before one get them back. You can estimate the time yourself. Chang Fu's expression changed drastically. He could not care less. Let's go now. I'll bring you there immediately. Yundong laughed. Chapter 92. Going all out. Yundong's expression changed and she moved her elbow backward. It's me. A familiar voice came from behind her, conveniently blocking her elbow. Yundong was slightly stunned. She turned around and saw Shao Qingyuan's expressionless face. She was surprised. Why are you here? Shao Qingyuan saw that she did not realize that she was still in his arms, so he pretended not to know anything. He only lowered his voice and said softly, one came with young Master Lu. Young Master Lu? The one who's chatting with Peng Zhongfei? You know him? I'm not very familiar with him. He's the rich young master who bought our wild boar last time. He's also Lu Wei, who said that he was classmates with the county magistrate's young master yesterday. He wants me to bring him into the mountains for 100 taels of silver. After a pause, Shao Qingyuan continued, I heard that you came to the Peng residence to look for Peng Zhongfei. Young Master Lu happened to be here, so I came to take a look. Yundong blinked. Are you here to help me? Shao Qingyuan was silent for a while. I went into the mountains this morning and caught 2 pheasants. I want to eat salt-baked chicken tonight. Yundong was speechless. You've worked hard enough for food. Shao Qingyuan nodded. I've never eaten it before. It's said to be very delicious. Poor child. Although Yundong was also an orphan, she had eaten good food from kind people when she was young in the orphanage. How do you plan to take back your things? Shao Qingyuan looked at her pitiful gaze and his heart skipped a beat. He had the desire to change his excuse. He was worried that if this continued, it would backfire, so he hurriedly changed the topic. When Yundong heard his question, she suddenly realized that she still had important things to do. Only then did she realize that the two of them were so close. She immediately retreated and said, what else can I do? Of course, I'll beat that Peng Zhongfei up and make him return the thing to me. Shao Qingyuan, Yundong saw that he wanted to say something but did not know where to start. She was amused. Huh, you really believe me? I'm not a fool. Besides, her main goal was not to get the blueprints back. Without these two, she could draw a better one. However, once the house was built, Peng Zhongfei could still find someone to smash it. Hitting someone was a bad idea. Let's be serious. Do me a favor. Not only will I make salt-baked chicken for you tonight, but I'll also cook spicy chicken for you. How about that? Yundong had a seductive look on her face. Shao Qingyuan felt that these words sounded a little familiar. After thinking for a moment, he remembered that he had seduced Lu Wei like this before. How is it? Are you going to help me? Don't worry, it's just a small favor. Yundong used his fingers to create a small distance between them. Shao Qingyuan's voice became exceptionally low. Okay. He would do anything to help. Yundong smiled and lowered her head to tell him his plan. When one go out later and see Peng Zhongfei, you, do this. Do you understand? Okay. Yundong patted his shoulder. Be careful. If there's any danger, retreat immediately. Yeah. See you then. Yundong carefully left the room. After walking for a while, she saw the maidservant who had led her looking for her. Yundong coughed lightly. The maidservant suddenly turned her head and scolded her, What's wrong with you? Who asked you to walk around? Do you know what this place is? Can you bear the responsibility if you offend Madam and Miss? Chapter 93. It'll save your life, you walked too fast and left me behind. Do you think you're in the right? Gu Yundong glanced at her. This servant girl seemed to have a sense of superiority. When she saw that Gu Yundong was wearing ordinary clothes and was not a decent person on the surface, she distanced herself from her in disdain. There was at least a 10-meter gap. You. The maid pointed at her angrily. Sure enough, you came from a poor place. You don't know the rules. Gu Yundong turned around and left. The maidservant was even more furious and ran up hurriedly. Where are you going? Jinglan Manor. She had only come out to understand the structure of the Peng residence and make some small moves. There was no need for that now. This time, she walked quickly, leaving the exasperated maid far behind. When Gu Yundong arrived outside the courtyard, Chang Fu was anxiously waiting for her to return. You're finally here. Young Master Peng asked us to go in. Quick, follow me. He was anxious for Gu Yundong to quickly take back the blueprints and give him the antidote. Young Master Lu has left? Chang Fu shook his head. No. Gu Yundong nodded and followed the servant in front. The Jinglan Manor was a little big. It seemed that this young master of the main branch had quite a status in the Peng family. When Gu Yundong entered, Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei were commenting on a painting. It seemed like there was nothing important. Were all these young masters so free? Especially since this painting was a portrait of beauty, even though it was very abstract. The servant walked to Peng Zhongfei's side and whispered, Young master, Chang Fu is here. Peng Zhongfei raised his head and seemed a little dissatisfied. He waved at Chang Fu and said, What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Don't you know that one have something to tell young Master Lu? Chang Fu felt bitter. He didn't want to, but this girl surnamed Gu was too ruthless. He could only smile and flatter, Young Master Peng, it's my fault. I'll apologize to you first. Alright, hurry up and say it. Get lost when you're done. Peng Zhongfei waved his hand impatiently, but his gaze towards Chang Fu was filled with warning. It was best not to speak nonsense in front of Lu Wei. It was also Lu Wei who had insisted on letting Chang Fu in just now. Otherwise, he would not have bothered with him. Chang Fu responded obediently and hurriedly took a step back. He said, Young Master Peng, this is Miss Gu. She's looking for you. You, Peng Zhongfei glared at him. This kid actually dared to take the initiative to bring an outsider in to see him. Gu Yundong immediately stepped forward and cupped his hands slightly. He lowered his head and said, Young Master Peng, the situation is urgent. I asked Chang Fu to bring me here. Where did you come from? Hurry up and get lost. How dare you get close to me? I don't like a woman with no chest or butt. Peng Zhongfei often encountered such things and wanted to send her away without even asking. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Can you stop feeling so good about yourself? Who has taken a fancy to you? I'm here to save young Master Peng's life. Gu Yundong looked up at him solemnly. Peng Zhongfei was stunned for a moment before looking at her carefully. Although this woman was plain from the beginning to the end and dressed very ordinarily, her face was still good-looking, but she was a little young. Yes, Peng Zhongfei expressed that he still liked people with breasts and buttocks. However, since she was quite beautiful, he would listen to her. To save my life? Peng Zhongfei sneered. You? Why didn't one know that I was going to die? Chapter 96. It really appeared the fragments fell to the ground. Peng Zhongfei and Lu Wei narrowed their eyes and stared at the ground. Their expressions were especially solemn, as if they wanted to watch helplessly as the fragments reassembled into a blueprint in front of them. However, there was no movement for a long time. Peng Zhongfei sneered. As expected, you're lying. Have you thought about whether to break your hand or sew your mouth? Gu Yundong frowned. That's impossible. Let me take a look. As she spoke, she walked towards the two of them. When she walked behind Peng Zhongfei, she gently touched his back. That action was instantaneous. Not to mention Lu Wei, even Peng Zhongfei himself did not notice it at all. Gu Yundong looked at the fragments of the blueprint on the ground. When she met Peng Zhongfei's gloomy expression, she suddenly shivered. She seemed to have thought of something and clapped her hands. Oh, right, I remember now. After one tore the blueprint appeared elsewhere. Why don't we look in the room? Peng Zhongfei suddenly turned around and stretched out his hand, almost hitting her eyes. You still want to stall for time and play tricks, right? Before he could finish speaking, Lu Wei, who was standing beside him, suddenly took a big step back and knocked over two round stools by his feet, making a dull sound. Peng Zhongfei frowned and turned to look at him. He saw Lu Wei staring at his back in shock. The blueprint has indeed appeared. Where? Peng Zhongfei panicked for a moment, but he still forced himself to calm down. Lu Wei pointed at him. On your back. This was too strange. Lu Wei wiped his eyes forcefully, looking like he couldn't believe it. Impossible. Peng Zhongfei shook his head. His hand subconsciously reached back, but he stopped halfway. He swallowed his saliva and asked, Is it really, on my back? Lu Wei nodded desperately. Peng Zhongfei instantly felt cold sweat on his body. After a pause, he closed his eyes and suddenly pulled the blueprint off his back. As soon as he saw the contents of the blueprint, Peng Zhongfei widened his eyes and sucked in a cold breath. He threw the blueprint away. Gu Yundong was quick-witted. Before the blueprint fell to the ground, she hurriedly grabbed it and exhaled softly. Then, she looked up at Peng Zhongfei and whispered, Young Master Peng, I'm not lying to you, right? Peng Zhongfei walked far away from the blueprint. He wanted to squeeze out a smile, but he could not. He couldn't help but mutter, Impossible. This must be a trick of yours. Impossible. Gu Yundong was very kind. Then why don't you tear another one? Get lost. What kind of stupid idea was that? Gu Yundong carefully placed the blueprint in her hand on the table and gently smoothed it out.